Hi, welcome back, guys. This is your friend the Welcome to Fanfics World, back with amazing fanfiction. This is a series of what if Deku became an extremely talented Quirk now. Before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want more videos like this now, let's get into the fanfiction. Yes, it seems to be a successful procedure. A male silhouette was on the phone, talking to someone. However, it is the first time we tried this technology after all. The results now may differ from what happens to the subject in the future. The voice said, "Of course, we will talk to his mother and keep him by our side for monitoring, just in case anything happens." Wait, what? All right. I know how many years of research you have put into this technology. Are you going to keep it a secret or release it to public? Yeah, I know. She wasn't very happy we used that, was she? Don't worry. I will also watch over her. Make sure she doesn't do anything drastic. You know how she is. That aside, are you sure he is going to be okay? I guess if you say so. I will take him in as his big brother. Hopefully there are no long-term effects of this method. Yeah, I know. It's all we can do for now. The procedure was already done. Yeah, we can't let those talents and powers fall into villains' hands after all. That's the only way to the next symbol of hope from them. It's also the only way to grant Midoriya Inko's wish to save her son. He saw someone in his dream again. A girl screaming for him to come back, begging him not to leave her. But the girl's features were vague and voice distorted. He wondered who she was, and what was his relation to her. He felt like he broke a promise for some reason, like he couldn't even keep it in the end. Feelings. It seemed to be something foreign to him. He didn't feel anything towards that dream. His brother said he couldn't, but what did he mean by that? He only operated on logic. He wondered what he should say first. He didn't even know what his name was until his brother told him. He didn't remember anything up until now. Not his name, nor his school, nor his friends. They said he had a mother, and mentioned in passing that she died. All he could respond with was a shrug. He didn't remember her anyway. He only remembered waking up in facility and being taken what he was supposed to call home by someone named Ashura Red Satoshi Ketchum, or Ash Ketchum for short. If he was to describe himself, he probably would have picked something like empty. Empty of emotions, empty of memories. Yet, he was full of talent. Who was he? Empty, 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 empty. Empty, 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 empty. Ash should have known that from the way the woman kept looking at his name tag that she was going to ask, Ash Ketchum. The woman said as she pulled out her wallet. Now how do I know that name? Gee, ma'am. Ash replied, I don't know. He was somewhat sick of people gawking at him. He may have been the most popular boy in the Hunter course, one of the top students in his cohort, and also youngest in his class, which meant he got more attention for being a grade skipper. But it'd be nice to have some privacy once in a while, although privacy was apparently not one thing the public would give, considering he was also captain of some clubs, which meant whatever competitions he participated would be put in the school and local paper. Maybe he shouldn't have stretched himself too far. Ash Ketchum was a 16-year-old hunter in training, and is also the youngest of his class, and was going to be with the third years next year, as opposed to being a second year. He stood at 185 centimeters tall, and he had brown eyes that he usually wore half closed, giving him a calm look. His hair was also smoothed down and cut to above shoulder length. He was a leader/member of Outdoor Adventure Club, Dueling Club, Current Affairs Club, Environmental Rangers Club, Scouts Rotary Club, and Mentoring Club. I know, the woman said, snapping her fingers and pointing at him. You're on H&H Heroes and Hunters, Academy's men's soccer team. No, ma'am, Ash answered. I'm not. Did she mix him up with Philip Robinson, one of his friends? Maybe he shouldn't be surprised, since all his 5 friends were leader of multiple clubs, top in their levels, and of course, are very popular. In fact, their clique was the most popular in school, and that is saying something, considering how big and prestigious their school was. Everyone dreamed of being part of their clique. You weren't one of the finalists in Miss Universe Japan, were you? The woman asked. But Ash could tell that she knew that she was wrong again and thought she must have mixed him up with his other friend, Pakura Amuri, as she was the one who won that competition, not him. Also, he was a male, so how could he even participate? No, ma'am. Ash said, wishing she would just let it go, but she didn't. Goodness. I just know I know your name from somewhere, the woman said, handing Ash her credit card to pay for her purchases. You sure I didn't read about you in the paper? Yup. She's one of those that hardly reads a paper. Ash thought, but he said, maybe. He had been in the local paper many times announcing his win on various competitions, or from his acts to save people from villains. Being one of the highest achieving students in the Hunter course also didn't help matters in terms of being put on the paper. It's probably, he said to the woman as he ran her credit card through the scanner, because I am one of the employees for this bookshop, which is the only one in this town. He knew it didn't sound like much, but Present Wisdom is the only independently owned bookstore in Mizurufu, Japan. No, the woman shook her head. That's not it either. Ash could understand her frustration, but just said, well, maybe you have one of those names that sound familiar. Maybe that's it. The woman replied, but she sounded doubtful. Gosh, this is going to bug me all night. I just know it. Her credit card was approved. Ash tore off the slip for her to sign and started bagging her purchases before handing it to her. Oh, well, the lady said, taking the bag from Ash and her receipt. I guess it's just one of those things. I guess it is. Ash answered, not without some relief, because she was finally leaving. However, his relief turned out to be short-lived, because a second later, the bells over the front door to the shop tinkled, and Candace, if Ash isn't wrong, she was in the talent course, dedicated to develop their talents to help the hunters. They also make up most of the clubs in the school, as those in the hunters and heroes courses spend more time training their quirks. She was holding an ice cream purchased from the shop across from the bookstore. Mom, would you hurry up? I've been waiting for you like ever. And Ash realized, belatedly, who he had been talking to. Great. While he can't be expected to read every credit card someone hands to him, the last thing he needed was a schoolmate to come in here, not counting his friends. Oh, Candace, you'll know. Candace's mother said to her daughter, how do I know the name Ash Ketchum? Oh my God! Candace's mother flung. Ash Ketchum, an amazing look at him. Popular boy, and he's pretty modest too. He's captain of so many nodded clubs. In approval. The top student. That was when Candace finally noticed him. And he's a member of the student council behind the cash register, who was nominated to be the student council president. Can I have your autograph? Oh, I hope he becomes president. Candace asked. He's our school's waving champion. A notebook. Ash fought the urge to hit his head on the counter. Once Candace and her mother left, Ash turned back and said, "You can come out now." Soft footsteps echoed, and out came a somewhat short boy around Ash's age, his round face framed by a short mess of fluffy dark green hair. His emerald eyes were large and round, and he would have eluded an aura of innocence, except that his expression was extremely bored. The stance as assumed also gave some maturity about him. Are you done? Izuku asked in a monotonous tone. Ash sighed, looking at his little brother, Izuku. It had been 6 months since that procedure. It had worked better than they thought, as the body they used as a base to save him somehow changed appearance to reflect his original appearance after the process was done. Because it was the first time they used it, the results of long-term effects were still unclear. This was why Ash and his friends had to keep him close and become his caretakers/friends to monitor him for any side effects. So far, what Ash deduced was that via the body they used for reconstruction purposes, Izuku had gained every known talent that has been researched thanks to the procedure, enough to qualify him as a superhuman even without a quirk. However, it might have cost him his human emotions, original personality, and memories. Izuku didn't remember anything at all from his life before the procedure, and thought of the world as boring and predictable. Essentially, the same abilities as that person, Ash, and the entire class of the matter, was still reeling over his death. But the person who had taken his death the hardest was Pakura. Ash didn't know if Izuku would ever regain his original personality and memories again, or if he would even be the same person anymore. In fact, Izuku didn't even remember his name. As a clue, Shura told him the name of the woman who begged him to save her son. Research later revealed his birth name as Midoriya Izuku. This Midoriya Izuku never smiled. No one ever saw him do it. He was blank. This Midoriya Izuku's eyes never shone with emotion. This Midoriya Izuku's catchphrase was, "How boring." He supposed, depending on how one looked at it, the procedure could be a blessing. Instead of Quirk, he got something much, much better: aura and psychic powers. Not to mention the natural talents the body had possessed. This was why Ash was assigned as his brother of sorts. Only he and his friends would have a chance against Izuku if he turned against him somehow, though Ash doubted that would ever happen. Furthermore, Pakura would not allow anyone else to take care of him. While he understood the reasons, he felt that others would only see it as an obsession. He couldn't blame her after her loss. It hit the class hard. They had privately agreed to keep him away from anything that would jolt his bad memories. Considering the circumstances they had found Izuku in before the procedure, Ash doubted that he had any friends at all. They would have turned to his mother for some memories of home, but Ash's frown deepened, and he jammed his fists into his pockets. Shortly after the talk with his mother and agreeing to save her son, villains attacked her home. By the time they got there, it was too late to save the mother. They did mention to Izuku at one point, but all they got was a shrug, his stare fixed on something far away. It seemed that information didn't even provoke any thought from him. They managed to salvage the notebooks containing the hero analysis or something among the ashes. Well, at least they're a starting point for Izuku. However, he didn't even seem to have any reaction to the notebooks whatsoever when he read the notes, simply transferring whatever he wrote to a tablet and new notebooks. This time, it was void of his hopes and dreams. It was simply information he could use for later, and in case his photographic memory forgot. To be a hero? How boring. Izuku commented, reading the notes. Ash thought that whoever believed he was going to be a hero would be heartbroken when they find out he all but crushed that dream on his own. A horrifying thought hit him. What if no one believed that in the first place? Would it have been better for Izuku to remain like this? Are you just going to space out? Izuku questioned, slightly annoyed. Sorry. Ash rubbed the back of his head. Did you need to say something to me? He doesn't, but I do. Jude Harrison, one of his friends, asked as he, Philip, Aquino, and Pakura were already standing in the store, unamused. Those were the other four that made up of the most popular clique in H&H Academy, members of the student council, and there were also his good friends. First off, it was Jude Harrison. He was 17 and is the second most popular guy in school. He had black hair with smooth bangs brushed to the side with wide amber eyes that is usually filled with mischief, in addition to pale skin and soft lips that oozes out the desire to be kissed. He had a slight muscular build and is the tallest of the group, standing at 188 centimeters tall. He was the leader/member of the Fashion Club, Drama Club, Entertainers Club, Photography Club, Cheerleading Club, Swimming Club, and Canoeing Club. Second was Aquino Calfaré-Cheveo. She was 17 and is the second most popular girl in school. She had black hair as well and forest green eyes. She was a petite girl with a delicate figure and is the shortest of the group at 178 centimeters, making others describe her as sweet-looking. She was a leader/member of Astrology Club, Fortune-Telling Study Club, Japanese Culture Club, Occult Club, and Yoga Club. Third was Philip Robinson. He was 17 and is the third most popular guy in school. He had brown hair with bangs that were combed down and baby blue eyes, giving him an image of an awkward but adorable dork. He stood around 183 centimeters tall and is also the smartest among them. He always secures first position in class and level in exams. He was a captain/member of the Infocom Club, Videography Club, Robotics Innovation Technology Club, Soccer Club, Science Club, and Computer Club. The last of the group, but not least, was Pakura Amuri. She was the oldest of the group, being 18, and also considered to be the most beautiful girl in school. She had long ebony black hair that reaches to the middle of her back, with amethyst eyes that is usually emotionless and high cheekbones. She had soft pink lips that every male had a desire to kiss, with a voluptuous figure every girl would kill to have. She was a leader/member of archery club, gymnastics club, strings club, choir, cooking club, and Red Cross. On her shoulder was a gray cat and a white underbody, with green eyes. From what Izuku heard, that cat belonged to another classmate of theirs and had no name. That was until the day Willow met Pakura and loved her instantly. Pakura subsequently gained ownership of the cat and named her Willow. For some reason, the cat liked him too, though Izuku didn't know why. It was like she knew him before with the familiarity she showed. "You're gonna get fired if you space out like this." Izuku commented idly to Ash. "Sorry." Ash was apologetic, smiling weakly. As soon as Pakura saw Izuku, she ran over to give him a huge hug. "How have you been?" Pakura asked Izuku, hands on both his shoulders. There was excitement in her eyes, although her expression didn't show it. "Splendid, as always." Izuku replied formally, "Now that we have your attention, there's something we want to ask you." Philip said. Jude swung himself up on the counter and helped himself to a lint truffle from the candy display. The others were looking around the store, wondering if the shop might sell something they want or need. "Sure, what is it?" Ash said to Philip. To Jude, he said, "You eat that and you owe me 80 yen. In response, Jude dug out a 100 yen coin and slapped it down on the counter. Then he plucked another lint ball and tossed it to Akino, who was so surprised a lint chocolate truffle came at her out of nowhere. She didn't think to catch it, and it smacked her on the shoulder. Before it could fall to the floor, Izuku sighed and used his reflexes to catch it, before passing it to Akino. "You still owe me 60 yen. Ash said to Jude. "Later." Jude waved him off. "Philip, ask your question." "I was going to ask you if Izuku was going to go to middle school." Philip questioned. "I mean, it's still 10 months until the next entrance exam for H&H Academy." Ash turned to Izuku. "Do you want to go middle school?" "I don't care either way. It sounds boring." Izuku answered, yawning. "Do what you want." Izuku listened as Ash talked about getting him homeschooled. He didn't really care either way, as long as something gets his mind off of this boredom. Ever since he woke up in the facility hospital, he found himself being capable of just about anything. In fact, he knew just by looking at Ash and the others, they genuinely care about him and was worried about him losing his memories and original personality. He knew that his original personality was completely different from how he was now. He just couldn't find it in his heart to care. He only agreed to whatever they said because he knew those five would never lie to him about anything. "So, Ash, what high school would he be going?" Philip questioned. "There is no question that he will be in the same school as us." Ash replied, "Unless Izuku has a school in mind?" He turned to Izuku. Izuku shook his head. He didn't care either way, actually. Instead, he was looking to the window with a blank stare. "It's to keep watch of you, Izuku. In case anything happens, we can reach you." Ash reasoned. "I can tell." Izuku answered, "How boring." Philip nodded as he caught a lint ball from Jude. "If you break that display glass." Ash whipped his head towards Jude, a warning tone in his voice, because he was still sitting on the counter, swinging his feet in front of the glass display case beneath it. "I'm making you take those entire dolls home with you." Because beneath the glass are about 30 Madame Alexander dolls, most of which are based on fictional characters from books or movies. Did Ash mention it was his idea to put the dolls behind glass? After Ash figured out the bookstore he is now working has been losing a doll a week to doll collectors, who are notoriously light-handed when it comes to Madame Alexander, and who carry very roomy tote bags into shops like this one for the sole purpose of adding into their collection without the pesky burden of having to pay for it. Jude once mentioned he hated dolls. The way they stare into his eyes, he said, is just plain creepy. Jude stopped swinging his feet, as Pakura looked at the display glass to admire the dolls. "What course are you hoping to put me in?" Izuku questioned, folding his arms. "Hopefully, you'll be in the hunter course with us." Ash answered, "However, I won't stop you if you want to be in the hero course." While there was nothing wrong with the hero's course, It's just that the students from the Hero and Hunter course, they never get along most of the time, due to the clash of ideals. In the school, those under the Heroes department never believed in stooping to unscrupulous methods to subdue villains, such as killing. For example, those studying to be hunters, on the other hand, believe that they have to do whatever it takes to achieve the objective and save their teammates, if any, even if it means spilling blood of the villains. Another example included that heroes interrogate criminals without using brutal force or the use of their quirks, only if necessary. Hunters, on the other hand, was not above torture or using a brutal interrogation methods to get answers. The public was torn at the difference of values. Those who worshipped the heroes thought that doing that was too far. Those who sided the hunters pointed out that the villains have committed atrocious crimes like kidnap, rape, massacres of innocent civilians. While they can't bring back the dead, how else will they learn their lessons if they don't get a suitable punishment? In order to maintain peace and not have infighting, H&H Academy, originally UA High, before the Hunter courses were introduced, was a one school for the future leaders to see things from the other's perspectives and to compromise their values. This was because at the end of the day, they all wanted one thing: to take down the villains threatening the peace in the world. And not interested, but do what you think is best. Izuku replied. Ash was about to respond, but then turned to glare in irritation as Philip helped himself to another lint ball. Couldn't he keep his sweet tooth to himself for 1 minute? My goodness, I didn't realize it had got so late. The assistant manager, a woman named Noelle, commented. She was a woman with dark orange hair styled with the left side parting and the back parted into 4 tails. She had light blue eyes as well. Hello, boys and girls, said Noelle, greeting Ash and his friends. What are you kids planning for the weekend? Is someone having a party? No, we did receive invitations to some parties, but we're not going. Parties like those involve alcohol. And remember what happened the last time alcohol was involved. Jude sounded disgusted. You mean when some guy in your school 2 years ago tried to make Pakura play a drinking game and made her drink more than the usual amount that was agreed upon because he thought she didn't drink them even if she did in front of him? Izuku spoke up. You know the story? Akino turned to him, surprised. I heard someone talking about it in Sushi Saito. Izuku replied shortly. It sounded boring, so I didn't bring it up. You heard that talk? Everyone was talking at the same time. Ash widened his eyes. It was pretty crowded that day when they took Izuku, and it was difficult to hear what each group was talking about except their own, unless you have enhanced hearing like Pakura, which was gained 4 years of musical experience. He's showcasing the same abilities as him, that's for sure. Ash thought, oh, yeah. After that, he tried to take her to a room to sexually assault her when she was supposedly drunk, but luckily, Ash saw him and beat him up for that. Philip mused. He was expelled the very next day, of course, when we reported. Yeah, but the look on his face was priceless when he realized Pakura wasn't drunk yet. Akino laughed. Izuku rolled his eyes as Noelle nodded. Ash couldn't help but laugh as he reached for the cash drawer to count out the day's receipts, before lifting the cash drawer out of the register, then walked back to the back of the store to lock it up in the office overnight. On the way, he noticed that Jocko, one of his regular customers, was engrossed in the latest ride, a car magazine. His 3 children were busy wrecking the Brio train set that Ash's employer, Noelle, puts out for kids to play with while their parents shop. Hey, guys, Ash said to the kids, who were ramming the train's caboose into the block building they just built. We have to close now. Sorry. The children groaned, and Ash knew that their dad clearly didn't have as many cool toys at home as they did at the store. Jocko looked up, surprised. Is it really closing time? He asked, and then looked at his watch. Oh, wow, look at that. Ash sighed and shook his head, and he continued his way and locked up before joining his friends, who were waiting outside the door for him. They piled into the pink convertible belonging to Pakura. For some reason, she kept asking Ash, who was the only one with driver's license among them besides her, to store at his house, a reason she refused to tell him, just saying it's a personal reason. Ash, as her friend, didn't want to pry, so he agreed, and Ash started to drive them to their favorite cafe. Before entering the cafe, Pakura stuffed Willow into her handbag, gesturing for her to be quiet. They then snagged the balcony table, where they can see what is going on at the streets at the same time. When they sat down, Jude looked down and said, "Hey, look down." It is our classmate Cynthia. The others followed their gazes down and saw a very pretty girl with long blonde hair that reaches to her knees, and some of her fringe was covering her one eye. She was wearing a casual outfit, a light blue vest-like sleeveless shirt with black pants. Ash knew that indeed it was Cynthia, one of the top contenders in Class 3-2, another class that was under the Hunter course. She's one beautiful girl. Aquino agreed, but Pakura still beats her. Indeed. Ash nodded to Pakura. Besides, I'm sure Cynthia's not the only girl with the good looks in school. Speaking of good looking, I can't wait to see the looks on everyone's faces when they see your new look once you get back to school. Jude nodded to him. Ash sighed, knowing what happened. Out of jealousy of his achievements, one of the students poured acid on his face at the end of year celebration, at their first year. He had waited until Ash went to the toilet alone and attacked him from there. However, Togata Mirio, a fellow student council member, witnessed it and reported the student immediately. It was also the first time they saw Principal Nizu that mad. In fact, he was so angry he had caned the student on the spot in front of the student body and expelled him. Pakura had went to heal his face in secret, but she couldn't return his birthmarks, which was why his face is now birthmark-free. He decided to cut his hair and comb it down as well, and spend more time indoors and out, giving him cream-colored skin instead of the tan skin he usually had. But for his own safety, he chose to do online schooling while the charges were being pressed against that student. Luckily, Principal Nizu and Vice Principal Goodshow had approved. With that said, he would be returning to regular classes next week, as the case was closed sometime after he took an Izuku. I still say you look more handsome now. Aquino giggled. Ash gave his friend a wry smile. Izuku sighed. Ugh, popular kid talk. That thing was always so boring. Opinions on superficial topics, gossip, so he just sat and listened. How boring, he thought. Do you think we would make a good soul mate someday? Philip asked. Don't be ridiculous. Izuku muttered. Most unfortunately, they all heard him. Why? What's wrong with finding your soul mate in school? Jude wanted to know, turning to Izuku. I mean, that may be the only chance you find your soul mate. If you blow it off just because you don't want to meet your soul mate school, you may never meet your soul mate, and you'll be lonely forever. I don't believe we have only one soul mate. Izuku replied, somewhat thoughtful. I bet we're given multiple chances to meet them. Sure, you can meet a soul mate in school, but that doesn't mean if you don't act on it, you'll never meet anyone else. You will, just at a time that's more convenient for you. He has a point. Ash agreed. Philip frowned. What's so inconvenient about meeting your soul mate in high school, though? Let me see, said Ash, rubbing his chin as if to think about it. How about most of us still live with your parents, where you and your soul mate supposed to, well, get it on? Car? Aquino suggested as Izuku face-bombed. See, that's BS, said Ash. Only he didn't just say the initials. What's so romantic about that? Forget about it. So, you're trying to say no one should date while we're still in school? Jude asked. Sure, you can date, said Ash. You can like to the movies and hang out and stuff. But don't, fall in love. Philip rolled his eyes and said, What? Don't fall in love, Ash? Not with somebody you go to school with. I mean, you don't want to spit where you eat, do you? Ash asked. Only he didn't say spit. Well, you have a point. Pakura muttered. I'm serious. You date someone in school and then break up, you still have to see them in school. That's like super tense. Who needs all this when you already have classes, hunter training, competitions, and even school clubs in the mix? Ash questioned. Besides, we're the most popular clique. Everyone wants to date us for the wrong reasons. Who is going to like us for who we are rather than our looks, popularity, and talent? What do you think, Izuku? Aquino asked, turned to Quiet Boy. Ash already said all I was thinking. Izuku shrugged, standing up. I'm going to take a walk. He really couldn't stand listening to that talk anymore. Are you sure you'd be safe? Pakura asked, a rare concern in her tone. Do you want anything? I'll be fine and no. Izuku touched her shoulder in an assuring way. He also petted Willow, who purred. Izuku then exited the cafe, putting on his headphones to block out unwanted conversation. Izuku walked across the streets, sighing. He doubted there was any point to anything where the outcome was obvious. He could tell that conversation on soulmates would end with the waitress coming over to take their order, and they'll move on to something else. Probably school stuff. No doubt. He took out his notebooks, wondering why I seemed upset, when he felt nothing toward them. It must have been significant to me at one point. Izuku thought, since when do I engage in boring stuff, such as hero analysis? He supposed it would be good to analyze the opponent and all, but what is good about doing so towards allies? For training regimes? He doubted from the notebooks that he wanted to be a trainer. He apparently once wanted to be a hero. The only thing he was remotely intrigued by was his newfound powers after the procedure he went through. It did not even seem like a quirk for starters. Quirks never had more than one ability before, and whatever he had seemed very versatile. Maybe he should get to training those abilities. While he knew the talents or abilities he had now was not originally his, they had assured him that what mattered was doing his best with them. Pakura even claimed the original owner would have wanted this. She must have known the original owner very well, or loved him very much. Izuku thought, remembering how she almost cried when she talked about him. It was odd for someone like her to show emotion after all. As he walked by an alleyway, he noticed something amiss, but ignored it. The villains tried to grab Izuku, only for him to jump back. The villain sludge solidified within a certain distance of Izuku for some reason. Never seen that coming. Izuku thought, "Hey, I said come over here." The villain said, withdrawing his sludge, as it turned back to normal once he was out of range. "Did you say something?" Izuku questioned politely, like he wasn't even in danger at all. He took off his headphones. "I said come closer, little boy." The villain crooned, "Are you going to take over my body or something?" Izuku looked the villain up and down. "Yes." The villain was excited. "How boring." Izuku said, a bored look on his face. Meanwhile, the public was doing their usual business when a what the was heard, and the sludge villain flew past them, hitting the wall. "What the?" A woman screamed, running away. "Okay, that's it, little boy. I'll make sure you suffocate slowly." The villain yelled, "Do all villains boast?" How boring. Izuku thought, unfolding his weapon, which looked similar to a dark green and black glaive, except they're also a long-barrel sniper rifle for long-range shots. The blade itself could also be rotated 90 degrees outwards to form a scythe. A crowd had gathered, and Izuku rolled his eyes. If most of them have quirks, they should be able to beat the villain. But yeah, they were useless, standing there gawking. The villain snarled. But Izuku gave him a bored look, striking his weapon into the ground. The villain fired its sludge at him, hoping to take over his body. Izuku spun the weapon, blocking the sludge from getting to him. It looks like physical attacks won't work on him. Izuku thought, analyzing his opponent. It didn't matter. After all, it solidified when it got near me for some reason. I can either use wind, ice, or just go near him. The sludge villain ran at Izuku, who spun around on top of his weapon and kicked the solidifying parts of the criminal, sending it flying. He got his weapon out of the ground and fired fire-based bullets off to hit him along with the butt of his weapon, sending him flying. The fire forced the villain to a corner, which was what he wanted. Izuku ran near him, firing ice-based bullets this time to immobilize the villain. Once he got near, the villain started to solidify, causing him to scream, "Were you?" The villain yelled, as the sludge was not working anymore. Izuku fired again and brought the blade of his weapon down to him, dodging the solidifying sludge and getting close enough to knock him into the air and follow him upwards so he could beat him away. He finished it with an ice bullet to the villain, solidifying him. He also extinguished the fire with a blast of water from his weapon. When he finished, someone landed next to him. It was a very large man with muscular and well-defined physique. He had short blonde hair, swept backwards, with two distinct tufts that stuck up above his head, leaning slightly to each side, which cast a dark shadow over his face. In other words, a comic superhero. Boring. Izuku sighed. Where's the villain, my boy? The superhero asked. Right here. Izuku deactivated his weapon, pointing to the solidified villain. You're late. The number one hero laughed, patting his back before straightening. Well, great job, my boy. Say, could you let him out so I can get him a container? As long as you don't tell anyone what I did. Izuku replied, aiming a fire bullet at the ice statue. Actually, I think I'll be ratted out and be interrogated or something. I think he have some connection to H&H Academy. Maybe he was going to be a teacher there. And I was right. Izuku was sitting in a dark room, right underneath a bright light. Sitting across from him was a slender and tall, pale-skinned man with messy, shoulder-length black hair that partially hung in front of his face and often half-open black eyes. Izuku thought it gave him a tired look. Izuku knew him to be Aizawa Shota, also known as Eraserhead. His quirk apparently could cancel out other quirk powers and abilities simply by looking at the target. He also uses binding cloth as part of his fighting style. He'd be one troublesome opponent. I hope that you realize that your actions will not be taken lightly, problem child. You put yourself and others in great danger. Aizawa said, giving him a look. Do I look like I care? Izuku waved it off. If it were up to me, you'd be sent home, without a chance to attend the entrance exams. Aizawa muttered, That's a punishment? How boring. Izuku yawned. But there is someone here who would like to meet you. Aizawa acted as if he did not hear Izuku. As if on cue, the door opened and in came what loomed like a stout man who appeared to have a mouse's head, dog's paws, and the tail of a cat. He was holding a tray of tea, along with a plate of cookies. Am I a rat, a dog, a bear? Who knows? However, I am the principal of UA. Nizu introduced. Izuku stayed quiet, as whatever the animal was came closer to him. Midoriya Izuku, Principal Nizu leaned in close to him. You have the nullification quirk. Come to think of it, the quirk the villain had no effect on me. Izuku thought, so I render other quirks useless? He thought he never had a quirk to begin with. You also remind me of one of our previous students. Outstanding person, he was. Nizu went on. Nizu inwardly suspected that Izuku had some sort of connection to that boy who once attended the hunter course. He must have super intelligence as his quirk or something. Izuku narrowed his eyes, and from his tone, tragedy must have struck the student. So, where did you learn to do this? Nizu questioned, gesturing to the tablet showing Izuku's fighting. Self-taught. Izuku replied shortly. You taught yourself to use that weapon? Nizu was surprised. I designed a weapon myself, and developed a fighting style based on what I observed on television and books. Izuku answered, keeping his monotonous tone. It just came naturally to me. I see. Nizu nodded, putting the cookies on the table in front of Izuku. Izuku, not seeing any objections, started eating the cookies. He thought it could be better, since he didn't particularly like it nor dislike it. It's just that I've only seen skills like this in the Hunter course students. Nizu observed, I've been taught to utilize my talents. Izuku replied, never know when they come in handy. So I've noticed. Nizu sipped his cup of tea, sitting down opposite Izuku. Do you have any hopes or motivations? No, it's boring. Izuku replied. Ash said he wanted to apply me to the Hunter course. I let him, since the outcome is already obvious in the start, so why contest it? Aizawa and Nizu studied him. It seemed like he never had to put his heart into anything at all. Was he associated with the student of class 2-1, since he mentioned Ash? After all, the student Izuku reminded them it was also from that class. Do you know who I am? Nizu asked. You're Principal Nizu. You're the headmaster at H&H Academy, originally known as UA High, based on your comment about my quirk. Your quirk is likely something to do with unparalleled intelligence, perception, and comprehension that likely surpasses a normal human. Now you're going to try and persuade me to go to the hero's course, because you are suspicious of the reason why Ash intended to put me in the Hunter course. Am I right? Nizu and Aizawa widened their eyes, as Izuku was right in all accounts. It's predictable. Izuku shook his head. What do your parents think of this? Nizu questioned, worried about the boy. Izuku shrugged nonchalantly. Can't remember if I had any. I can't remember anything about my life until a few months ago when I first woke in the facility hospital. I was wiped of my memories and original personality. I didn't even remember my name until they told me. Aizawa frowned. So you live in an orphanage then? Izuku shook his head. Aizawa's frown deepened. Then where do you live, kid? He asked, concern evident in his features. I live with the second-year hunter students in their dorms. They were there when I woke up and took me in. Izuku answered, taught me the things I knew. They never really lied to me, so I stuck around. It didn't really mean that he took a liking to them. They were just there. It's commendable that they want to take care of you in your time of need. I will admit that the students in Class 2 to 1 are extremely capable. Regardless, they are still students and are not of legal age to actually adopt you. Aizawa said firmly. He understood that the second years saw themselves in him. However, he felt they were biting off more than they can chew with Izuku. After all, they had already suffered a loss, and he hoped that without the responsibility of caring for Izuku, they could take the time to privately mourn and recover by the time they become third years in 10 months' time. I don't care much of that boring stuff. Izuku replied, I can take care of myself if needed. After all, he did have the necessary skills. Aizawa pitied the boy. He may have had immense talent, but he had no memories, no personality to speak of, and no family that could give him the care he needed. I have an idea. A voice said. They turned to see a short old man with white beard and white hair came in. Vice Principal Goodshow. How nice for you to drop in. Nizu said serenely. The vice principal of the school, Charles Goodshow. Izuku thought, if I am not wrong, his quirk is amplification, which enhances the powers and effects of another quirk. However, for best results, he has to touch the person in order for it to take effect. Sorry to interrupt. Charles chuckled. Why don't you adopt him, Aizawa? Aizawa sighed. This was going to be one difficult problem child. However, something about Izuku felt like he needed to help him. I'll have to check with President Mike. If he agrees, we can adopt him. It's all right. If he says no, I can just get emancipated. Izuku shrugged. It doesn't matter. He will approve all right. Aizawa replied dryly as he opened the door to leave. Unless he doesn't want sex anymore. Nizu and Charles laughed, while Izuku's expression remained unchanging. He simply sat back and waited for them to finish laughing. Well, back to business. Nizu said, after he got control of himself, once Aizawa adopts you, I'm sure he will be putting you in the hero's course. In other words, the decision is made for me. How boring. Izuku yawned. I suppose I have to take the boring entrance exam? Oh, no. Nizu smiled as he leaned in. You'll annihilate the competition, and we would only get one new student. Tell you what, you would get into UA for your high school years by direct recommendation. You wouldn't even have to take the hero exam. What do you say? Nizu's beady eyes were staring into Midoriya's soul. Any normal or sane human being would have shuddered in fear, but not the emotionally stunted Izuku. In fact, Izuku's eyes hardened at his words. What kind of boring offer was that? What's in it for me? He questioned. Nizu gave a secretive smile. Oh, I can't believe Izuku is going to Hero's course and is going to be adopted. They just dismantled our plans. Akino wailed. How do we make sure he's okay when he's going to be all the way at the other side of the school? I'll be fine, guys. Izuku sighed. We can always contact each other. While I do not disapprove of the adoption, we are rather disappointed they just decided for you to go to the Hero's course. Jude agreed, but at least you got a spot automatically. Philip gave a smile. I'm so proud of you. Really, guys, it was nothing. Izuku shrugged. I just took down some villain with the skills you taught. What do you mean? It was incredible. Everyone is going to think you're the bee's knees. Ash grinned. You're special too. Izuku pointed out, yawning. You're the person who got moved ahead 2 years. So, when are they going to get the adoption through? Ash wondered. Knowing their status as pro-heroes? Probably within the next 24 hours. Izuku predicted. I'll ask them about seeing you guys, all right? All right, problem child. Aizawa said to Izuku as they were driving to his apartment. You will be living with us from now on. I have adopted you. You're my ward now. Okay, Izuku said with the same monotonous voice he always had. You guys didn't have to do this. We know that. Hisashi, Presumike, answered, smiling, trying to spread his cheer to the emotionless boy. We wanted to help. You don't have a guardian, right? Someone has to be there for you. Sho and I wanted it to be us. You guys are married, aren't you? Izuku looked between them. Ah, Hisashi made a face. Knew nothing would escape you. How boring, Izuku thought. But what about my friends? He did not know what other word to use when it came to Ash and his group. I have spoken to Amiri about your situation, and I have to persuade her that you'll be safe with us. Aizawa answered. She's being overprotective, which is really unlike her. Izuku thought. She has agreed to let us take care of you, as long as they can still visit you. I don't see a problem in that. Aizawa replied, snapping him out of his thoughts. That's right, little listener, we'll take care of you. Hisashi exclaimed, grinning. If you say so. Izuku mumbled. He did not know what to make of these two yet, as he fell asleep. He hadn't even woken up when they had reached their apartment, so Aizawa had to carry him all their way to their doorstep. Hisashi was waiting at the door for them. When he saw Aizawa carrying a sleeping Izuku, he snapped a picture with a snigger, much to Aizawa's chagrin. Hisashi snickered and opened the door to let them in, with Aizawa laying Izuku down on the couch, putting a blanket over him. Hisashi was making dinner when he heard muffled noises. He paused and leaned out, only to see Izuku struggling to breathe in his sleep because of a kitten resting on top of his face. The kitten was a pure white Himalayan cat with one blue eye and one green eye. Oh, come on, Carapin. What did I tell you about sitting on other people's faces? Hisashi groaned, getting the little cat off of Izuku. Izuku sat up, coughing out some fur that was in his mouth. You all right there, little listener? Hisashi questioned. Izuku nodded, still trying to shake the sleep from his mind. Carapin yowled, reaching her paws towards Izuku. So sorry about Carapin. She's a generally very curious cat. Never seen her sit on strangers' faces before, though. Hisashi apologized. The moment he let go of Carapin, she leapt back onto Izuku, forcing him to catch her in his arms. Izuku tentatively scratched the cat under her chin, eliciting a purr from her. Izuku wondered why the cat, like Willow, seemed to like him very much, as she snipped before curling up in his lap, closing her eyes to sleep. Are you feeling all right, little listener? Hisashi questioned. I'm okay. Izuku replied tonelessly. I suppose. What else can I feel at the moment? Present Mike, not believing Izuku one bit. I'm going to get Sho for dinner. Once you eat, we can get to your sleeping arrangements. Hopefully, Katsudon is to your taste. Izuku blinked. He knew what Katsudon was, having made it himself a few times. While he could make it perfectly like any other dish he had made, something about his own cooking just tasted bland, boring. He couldn't quite put his finger as to what it was, and figured he shouldn't care about something so minor. Mike came back, a tired Aizawa staggering after him, rubbing his eyes. Izuku found himself sitting next to Aizawa as dinner was set in front of him. Izuku sat there, observing the dish. It looks normal, I guess. He glanced up, and Aizawa and Hisashi were talking animatedly, or at least Mike was talking, with Aizawa listening. It reminded him of Ash and his friends, who would chat over meals. He wondered if this was normal for other people. He took the chopsticks and took a bite of the dish. He supposed it would do for now, not knowing how to describe the taste. He guessed that it was all right tasting, though there was something about it that was missing from his own version. As he ate, he quietly thought that it was strange that the heroes took an interest in his skills and wanted him to be in a hero's course. What was more, they even decided to adopt him, which was apparently to give him something that they thought he was missing. It's likely that they didn't think they were up to the task. Izuku concluded, likely because the tragedy that happened was very recent, and I wager that student mentioned belonged to that class. That is why they stepped up to try and help me. Midoriya? Mick's voice asked, cutting through the thoughts in Izuku's mind. Is there something on my mind? Izuku finished, How did you know? Present Mike was surprised. I'm analyzing the situation. Izuku answered. Analyzing? Aizawa was puzzled at that. Izuku cut straight to the point. Principal Niza mentioned that a tragedy struck the student that I remind him of. If you're adopting me and not leaving me in the care of Ash and his friends, it means that whoever was belonged to Ash's class. I wager that he is likely a very important person to everyone in class. You genuinely want to help me because you realize I have none of my memories or original personality. However, you suspect something is off about me, and that the class is keeping a secret. All correct. Aizawa found no reason to lie to the kid. It seemed like he had extreme analytical prowess based on the very little clues he had. I suppose I appreciate the help. Izuku stated. You do want to give me a loving family, which I have lost. But I don't remember anything about her, so I don't feel upset. If Izuku could feel, Aizawa felt that Izuku would have been upset. Don't worry, little listener. Mike piped up. We'll research into your life before you lost your memories. Hopefully, it'll jumpstart something. Maybe. Izuku nodded, munching on his meal. Do I have to go to middle school or something? You'll have to, if not just in 4 where you went for middle school. Even if you don't have to take any entrance exam. It's only for 10 months. Aizawa acknowledged. But Ketchum has explicitly stated you could go anywhere but Aldera Junior High. Izuku hummed in acknowledgement. I don't particularly care where I go. Present Mike nodded. I know, little listener. However, what they did not say was that they had agreed with Ash's reasoning as to why Izuku should not attend that school again. In fact, Ash had provided a very compelling reason in the form of security footages, which was likely stolen via hacking. They also privately noted to try and keep this Bakugo Katsuki guy away from their ward, lest it trigger bad memories. That meant choosing a school that was near them, yet far enough from Aldera Junior High. They are hiding something, all right. Izuku thought, observing the two. But who cares? He had learnt that sometimes ignorance was bliss. After all, no one could accuse you of not saying anything if you didn't know about it. After the meal, he was taken to a plain room, where Present Mike proclaimed that this was his new room and he could decorate it any way he wanted. Present Mike returned half an hour, expecting only some decorations, only to find that Izuku literally remodeled everything. His room was now painted a light beige and had a large shelf full of CDs and books of all genres, along with a CD player. At the wall opposite the bed, it had electric guitars hanging over it, and to the wall of the bed was leaning against was a few posters based on famous video games. There was even a flat-screen television along with a console. At that side, it had some video games on the shelf below the television. The bedding was replaced with black and white bedding in a modern and elegant way. There was a study desk that had a built-in computer, along with a table that is draped with a white lace cloth. On top of the lace cloth was a tea set. The lighting was completely replaced with what looked like a chandelier. How did you get all these in half an hour? Present Mike gaped. He knew Izuku didn't bring any of those items with him. I work hard. Izuku replied in a deadpan tone. Well, we'd like to tell you that we have selected a school for you. Present Mike spun and posed. You'll start tomorrow. Hooray. Izuku said in a deadpan tone. Of course, they'd use their connections to secure a place for him halfway into the school year. Then, you should have a good night's sleep, because tomorrow it's a big, big, big day. Present Mike yelled excitedly. Very nice. Good night. Izuku slammed the door on Present Mike's face with telekinesis. He decided to go to bed, as he was tired. As soon as Izuku slid into the bed to cat from before, he remembered her name being Carapin, jumping on a spot on the bed next to him. She curled up and wrapped her pure white tail around herself. She purred as Izuku lifted a hand to pet her, waiting for sleep to take him through the night. As Izuku stared at the ceiling, he wondered what was waiting for him next. But the unpredictability and the fact that anything could happen made him almost divert from his usual apathy. Almost. Izuku slept, and the next part of his life began. Izuku woke up early the next morning. He brushed his teeth and ate his breakfast before taking the time to change. Little listener, come on. You keep it up and you're going to be late. Present Mike yelled. Izuku sighed as he packed his bag neatly in his box lunch that President Mike had made him. It seemed to him that the school was trying to show off with their uniforms, considering he was wearing the typical black Gakurin. While he didn't look too bad, he thought it was too. He didn't even want to say anything. I look like some stiff, stuck-up schoolboy. Izuku thought darkly, pulling with discontent at the high collar of the uniform of his new school and making his way out. Aizawa was not too pleased about the clothing or school either, but it seemed to be the best school that would take Izuku and wasn't near Aldera. Only President Mike was excited about Izuku starting school. "Well," said President Mike, looking him up and down, "do you look smart? How boring." Izuku sighed. Little listener, don't look so down," President Mike said cheerfully. "It's only for 10 months. You'll survive, since your friends would take time out for you. I should know." He certainly should, Izuku thought. Ash and the others had been dropping by his house every day to check up on Izuku. Cammy knows how they figured out where they lived. But then again, they had Philip, who literally can hack into anything. Ugh. He must have hacked into computer systems at the request of Problem Child Zero. Aizawa grumbled, holding a cup of coffee. It's his nickname for Pakura. How does Drasna spend all day in a classroom with them without losing her cool is a wonder to me. Look on the bright side, Sho. President Mike chirped. He doesn't need to make friends because he already has them. You could learn all sorts of stuff from them, though they are not exactly heroes. Aizawa heaved another sigh. Why Niza thinks it's a good idea to put hunters and heroes in one school, I have no idea. They don't even get along well. Who knows what he thinks? President Mike shrugged happily, but it was kind of Nizu to offer shelter for the Hunter Corps students, especially since we don't know the circumstances behind taking in these students. Judging by that, I am pretty sure Ash and the others aren't Japan-born, or at least they are raised in another country for most of their lives. Something must have happened to their previous schools. Izuku thought, having read no news of a school shutting down. Speaking of schools, he had the feeling that Alder Middle School was going to face some comeuppance, if the documents on the coffee table was any indication. He knew President Mike said something about jolting his memories through digging into his old schools, but for some reason, they didn't bring up anything anymore. Not that he cared much, but he was almost sure that he went to that school before Ash and the others knew something about his life there. Why they didn't tell him was a question for another day, though he predicted that he probably didn't have the best life there. He petted Carapin and bade goodbye to his adoptive parents before rushing out. There wasn't any point in delaying anyway, since his parents were getting ready for work. In his future school, H&H Academy, Izuku pushed the thought out of his mind as he made his way to the train station. While he didn't really think much about school, he knew it'd be unwise to be late. Apparently, it's the impression that he cared about his education. If he had to act as if he did care just so no one would put it in his disciplinary record, he'd better do an excellent job of it. He looked at the people in the train with him in distaste. How dull. Nothing about them particularly stood out to him. As he took out his phone to browse something. Anything to pass time, he supposed. His phone buzzed when he's in the middle of looking at some Hunter forum. Academy's idle. Hey, Izuku, I've baked cookies. I want you to try them during lunch. Are you free? Of course it's Pakura. Izuku thought, I suppose I don't have anything, and they probably want to hear about my first day or something. Also, what kind of username is that? How are they going to have lunch with him when they go to different schools? Having nothing better to do, Izuku texted back. Midoriya Izuku. How are we going to do that? Academy's idle. We have our ways. Izuku didn't doubt that. One thing about the Hunter course was that you have to have an ultimate talent. It could be anything really, anything that they could interview them about other than their success in missions or something. Because H&H Academy usually want those who are described as being the very best at what they do. Those in the talent department of the Hunter side did not need to take an entrance exam, as most of them were scouted. He wouldn't be surprised if one of them had the uncanny talent of disguising themselves or infiltration or concealment of presence or something. While he found tasting cookies boring, he didn't really want to upset Ash or Pakura for some reason. Midoriya Izuku. Sure, why not? Also, what's with that username? Pakura texted back right away. Academy's idle, Great. We would see you at lunch then. As for the username, I lost a bet with Philip, and he got to give us all our usernames. Trust Philip to come up with the most boring usernames. He knew that even Ash could come up with better usernames. Then again, Philip went with practicality, not fun. When he heard the train announcer announce a stop, he shouldered his bag and walked out. What did he say? Ash questioned Deku as they were waiting for their homeroom teacher in H&H Academy. He said yes. Pakura had a small smirk. He also asked about the username. I told Philip those were lousy names. Ash groaned, glaring at the inventor, who had an awkward smile on his face as he chatted with his female classmates. A bet is a bet, though, Aquino pointed out. Although I really didn't expect Philip to win that, Ash hit his head on the table. He shouldn't have made that bet with Philip. Good morning, everyone. I have some exciting news before we start class. We have a new student joining us today. Please give a warm welcome to Midoriya Izuku, the prep middle school teacher, a woman with dark red hair and a ponytail and 2 strands framing her face and light blue eyes announced. What was her name again? Peneli? Penina? Penelope? Oh, right. It's Penelope. For someone who taught in a private school, she sure was chippy. Izuku wondered for a moment what it must be like inside that woman's head. What thoughts filled her waking hours? What dreams came to her at night? Izuku had no idea. The classroom full of teens clapped politely in greeting as Izuku walked into his new class. Izuku looked bored as he gazed at who he thought would be his new classmates. Something about them seemed too bland. Well, unless you count the boy he saw that had two-toned hair sitting at the back, which he didn't, since he looked as unassuming as the rest. Looks like he was in for another boring day. Midoriya, why don't you introduce yourself? Penelope-sensei asked kindly. Izuku sighed before saying, My name is Midoriya Izuku. I don't really like anything or care what you all think of me. Leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. He shrugged at the class, who was blinking at his bored attitude. What's your quirk? Someone yelled out. Yeah, show it to us. Another was eager. Izuku looked at the teacher, who nodded. Izuku sighed, weighing his options. It wouldn't be good to show his actual quirk. After all, it would keep the opponent guessing. So he simply said, My quirk doesn't work unless another is in use. That's why I can't show it for now, since we're in class. He was sure with that, they would back down. Sure enough, they did. How predictable. How boring. Penelope-sensei smiled. All right then, please take the seat next to Anita. Izuku's seatmate was a girl with cardinal red bob hair that was fanned out slightly, along with cerulean eyes. All right, students, let's begin our mathematics lesson. Please, pull out your books and go to the page 25. The first half of the day went by with lots of classwork to do. Not that Izuku was fazed by it. Since he breezed through it easily, it was almost as if he did it before. He also answered teachers' answers with ease, much to his classmates' surprise. His extra reading had clearly paid off. During English, he heard quite a bit of swooning and squealing with his enhanced hearing. He turned his head to see a girl with waist-length black hair and Byzantine blue eyes fawning over the two-toned haired boy next to her, who was sitting behind him. Much to his distaste, he saw she was wearing some fancy lavender hat with a purple flower on the left side, along with pink eyeshadow and eyeliner. It was clear she got away from the school dress code by being rich. Must have been a daughter of some prestigious family no one wanted to touch. Probably one of those who would brag about completing lessons in a wide variety of fields with excellent grades. Izuku thought, inwardly rolling his eyes. Izuku almost pitied the boy she had her eyes on. It was clear she thought she had a chance because of her family's social standing. If he was right, then the boy must be from a family like that as well. Why else would she show interest? He tried really hard to ignore the girl, but her grating voice was getting on his nerves and hearing. It's 1 in the afternoon before he knew it, and it's time for lunch. As soon as the bell rang, all of his classmates rushed out the door, ready to find their friends to eat together. Izuku stalled to put away his books, wondering just how they would see him at lunch. Maybe he should get somewhere to deflect suspicion? He didn't get to decide, however, since as soon as the last person left, A portal opened, and all 5 of them stepped out. They were wearing H&H's Hunter Corps student uniform, consisted of a long sleeve, button-up white shirt, and a black jacket with gold stripes. For the boys, it included black pants with a red tie, while the girls' uniform included a black skirt and a red ribbon. Izuku noticed all of them were wearing a star pin enclosed in a circle at the left side of their collars. I should have known. Izuku groaned as Ash gave him a big hug. Pakura was carrying her cat, Willow, who purred at the sight of him and gave him a lick on the cheek. "You brought the cat here?" Izuku was incredulous. "Technically, she's my emotional support cat. Aizawa-sensei petitioned for me to have my cat with me at all times. I'm sure he's a cat lover." Pakura replied, hugging Willow. Willow purred happily at this. "Come on," Ash started. "We're eating on the roof. No one would bat an eye at us over there." He didn't wait for Izuku to accept, instead tugging him to follow him out of class. The rooftop had quite a few people, and Izuku wondered if it was even a good idea for them to come over to his school. Wouldn't someone notice and call security? He didn't want anyone to see them, and he didn't really want to gain any attention because of them. It's always a drag to deal with peers asking boring questions. Not to mention, annoying. Ash was admiring the rooftop when they reached. "Hey, this isn't a bad view at all." Izuku sighed. Nice to know someone enjoys it. Next to him, Akino placed a picnic blanket for them to sit on. He sat on the mat, and Ash grinned before sitting down with him. Jude took out bento sets and handed them over to each of them. Pakura poured out food in a cat bowl for Willow. "Izuku, do you have lunch? Did Yamada-sensei and Aizawa-sensei make you something?" Philip asked, eating from a bento box. "They did make me something." Izuku admitted, taking out the bento box and opening it. It didn't look too bad, just a couple of sandwiches, along with rice and croquettes. The amount seemed to upset Ash. "What? That's not enough. You should eat more. Take some of my bento." Ash piled up some more rice, along with eggs, chicken, and some potato salad to his box. Izuku blinked at him, not really expecting much. He merely nodded in acknowledgement. "Oh, thanks." Ash merely shrugged and grinned. "Well, Paku made extra food. She also brought cookies as dessert." Izuku looked at him blankly. "Wouldn't they notice you sneaking out of school?" Akino shook her head, eating an egg roll. "Nah, they don't really care much where we go, as long as we are back for class. Not that we can leave the school, but hey, some of us can teleport." She gave this look to Pakura and Ash. "How was classes?" Ash questioned Izuku. "Boring." Izuku replied, "Classmates are boring too. Private schools always have very stiff rules." "So," Jude gave this knowing smile. "Nothing stood out to you? If you count someone's hair, then no." Izuku answered curtly, "Hair." Ash was incredulous, pausing in his lunch. Someone had hair that looked like some candy cane. Red on the left, white on the right. Izuku waved vaguely. "Oh, that Todoroki Shudo boy." Akino nodded. "He's one of the recommended students for H&H Academy. Recommended by his own father. The number 2 pro hero, Endeavor." "You mean that hero that had the most civilian casualties and property damage, and most likely cares more about his own image than actually saving people?" Izuku raised a brow. He could tell just by looking at the interview videos of Endeavor and his previous notes that he made. Not that he remembered writing them. "Exactly," Akino exclaimed cheerfully. The student council had to sort the files for the recommended student, and his file came up. "And I suppose all of you are part of the student council?" he asked dryly, earning 5 nods. "Can you guess his quirk?" Ash asked cheekily. Izuku thought for a moment. Quirks were usually passed down from parent, and knowing Endeavor, he would likely choose a wife that probably would complement his quirk. So since Endeavor has a Hellflame quirk, he was sure that the mother would have an ice quirk, or something close to that. Since Todoroki ended up looking like half red and half white, I think it's something like fire on left side and ice on right side. Izuku answered. He wondered if the boy had heterochromia, but never bothered to look at him properly. Absolutely right. Wow, your analysis is really second to nobody. Ash clapped. Izuku shot him a blank look, as he ate his lunch quietly. That was too easy to deduce. It's boring. So, are you going to try and make some friends of your own? Jude wondered. Friends are boring. Besides, I have you. Izuku muttered. Ah, you do care. Ash gave him a hug, which he sighed at but did not pry him off. He supposed he could put up with this for now. Love you too, little brother. While they were boring, Izuku figured they weren't too bad. After all, they were the first people he saw when he woke up for the first time. It's not bad to care about someone openly. Pakura agreed. Izuku looked at her for a moment as he took in her words. He sighed again, but nodded to acknowledge her words. Oh, Izuku, are you free after school? Philip questioned. We're going to Koba Municipal Beach Park to train. Want to join us? Izuku nodded. He didn't have any plans anyway, and he could use some brushing up on his newfound talents and powers. He felt somewhat content as Pakura passed out the cookies, and he took a bite. It was passably delicious, he supposed. It wasn't the worst he had tasted anyway, although he was still neutral, as they had to beg goodbye to him when lunch was almost over. Ash and Pakura practically had to be pried off of him as he made his way back to his classroom. Izuku was wondering how boring the training would be when he made it to Dagoba Beach. All of them were already there in their casual outfits amongst the garbage, and they turned upon hearing his silent footsteps. Well, Pakura turned. The others followed her movements. Yay, you made it! Akino clapped her hands happily. Izuku nodded stiffly. How was the rest of school? Ash questioned. Izuku made an exasperated noise. Nothing interesting. All right, let's get straight to the point. Now, you must be wondering why we're here. Philip gestured around at the mountains of trash surrounding them. Let me guess, community work, and lifting those trash would increase my strength? Izuku replied. Right again. You'll need to build up your base stats in order for you to be able to handle your aura and psychic powers better. Not to mention, they would make good practice for your abilities. Shouldn't I be already ready for it? The boy asked, raising a brow. Natural talent is one thing. Practice is another. If you practice, you'll be able to draw out faster. Ash explained. We must make your body stronger and faster for your fighting-based talents, and should you not be able to use your aura or psychic powers. You never know which adversary has a quirk to do so. And show them just why Nisa gave you a spot in the hero's course without any exam. Akino pumped a fist up. Now summon your weapon, and see if you can keep up with me. Ash took out his saber. Izuku summoned his glaive, as both charged at each other. 8 months later, and Izuku was sitting in class as usual, as Penelope-sensei was quick to assign plenty of work for her students, but said that if they wish, they can work with classmate. Izuku shook his head. He could do it on his own. Thank you very much. Another boring task that I could finish easily. Izuku thought with very slight contempt. He sensed his classmates' weak minds struggling with the work even in pairs. How disappointing. As he breezed through his work, he thought of the progress that he had achieved. It wasn't difficult to deduce that he had already exceeded what they had tasked him to do, and there wasn't a lot left to do. He found wielding his powers and fighting a lot easier now that his body had adjusted and grew along with his progress, gaining some muscle, although his height didn't change, much to his chagrin, though Pakura attempted to give him milk to help him grow. Physically, he supposed he was ready for H&H Academy. Mentally, he didn't know what to feel having to face Aizawa and Yamada in school, or Dad and Pops as he politely addressed them as. Also, he was still not remembering anything much about what happened before he woke up in that hospital. The only clue he had so far was when he was near the 5 of them, he felt contentment, like something familiar was about them, almost like they were home. Maybe he was another person before he became Midoriya Izuku? He wondered this as he finished his assigned work. But no entry from his hero analysis for the future triggered any familiarity to hint that he was that person before. Speaking of that, he then decided to work on his hero analysis for the future, which he renamed to Quirk Analysis. This was because villains do have quirks, and what better way to defeat them than to exploit their weaknesses? Another boring day. Izuku thought with a sigh. Excuse me, said an unfamiliar voice. Would you mind if I sit? Izuku looked up from his notebook to see who was speaking, and nearly showed visible surprise. Todoroki, distinguishable with his red and white hair, was standing next to his table. Izuku frowned. He knew that Todoroki could do it all on his own, so why would he even ask? Izuku looked around, realizing that the females were staring at Todoroki like he wanted them to ask them to partner with him. One look at the pieces of paper on Todoroki's desk made him realize that he asked because he wanted to get away from the girls. Of course, the girls either wanted to copy his work and have some time with the school's most popular boy. Izuku thought sarcastically, 2 birds, 1 stone. I'm apparently the safest option for him, because the other boys are jealous of him. Izuku must have been silent for too long, for Todoroki's expression was blank, and he repeated, "May I work with you?" "Sure," he said politely, "although I don't see why you would need the help." "That's fine," Todoroki said, dragging his chair to Izuku's table. As the other boy sat down beside him and began working, Izuku continued on his quirk analysis. Izuku was sketching Ash's weapon and its inner workings when he felt someone watching him. Taking a glance to his left, he realized Todoroki was peering at him calculatedly with his heterochromatic eyes. Izuku inwardly rolled his eyes. It was clear he was watching him to see if he was just like the others, being jealous of him for having all the girls or the talent or something. He had way too much self-hatred or something, seeing everyone as annoyances. Izuku himself found him boring, since other than having high grades, he didn't contribute much to clubs or something. It was almost like he had no hobbies at all, and is only dedicated to training. For a future hero in training, that was pretty dull. He could see the hunter course's point of at least having a talent before entering the hunter course. It was something to fall back on if your dangerous career forced you into retirement. How boring, Izuku thought. Soon, the lunch bell rang, and Izuku waited as usual for everyone to clear out. Sure enough, they came by the classroom to steal Izuku away to the rooftop. "So," Ash said as he dragged Izuku to the rooftop, "Izuku, how was the classwork?" "Boring." The boy shrugged, which was the answer he usually gave. It wasn't as if they didn't know, since they had been through middle school before. "I'm sure with you brains, you breezed through it." Ash smiled. Izuku nodded stiffly, not knowing how to react to compliments. "Hey, let's go out for lunch." Ash suggested. "When we get caught?" Izuku was skeptical. "We'll send you back before lunch is over." Pakura promised, dragging him through the portal. He landed outside what looked like a small cafe. As they all entered, they ordered drinks and snacks, and then settled into a corner booth. Izuku took out his lunchbox Yamada and Aizawa made to share with the companions, as they sat in a pleasant silence until their drinks and snacks were ready. Willow herself was hidden in Pakura's bag, munching on the snacks Pakura occasionally snuck under the table. Izuku looked bored until he saw what Philip had ordered. While he knew Philip liked sweet things, he thought what Philip got was a bit much. This time he got some sort of sugar monstrosity that looked like the colors of a unicorn or something with a chocolate bar sticking out of the top. He inwardly grimaced, but said nothing, having long since become accustomed to Philip's sweet tooth. It's peaceful. Izuku took a moment to watch his friends interact, talking and laughing together as they tucked into their snacks and some of Izuku's lunch. Although he didn't see the need to laugh or talk about anything, he allowed himself to be content for now. Ash, noticing that Izuku still didn't have enough food, had given some food he had bought from the cafe. Izuku allowed a small smile as he accepted it. He couldn't really complain about free food, though. Lately, he had been constantly hungry. All of the energy he used practicing moving the garbage around would do that. Maybe he actually was looking forward to this, although it was the same routine hanging out with them, and it was dull after a while. Suddenly, Ash's phone began to ring. He realized it was a video phone call from, "Oh no, it's Aizawa-sensei." Ash gulped. "Let's just answer," Jude said flippantly, not really afraid of the teacher. "Hello," Ash answered. Aizawa took one look at Ash and Pakura and sighed. Not usually a problem child and problem child zero. I should have known. Ash blinked at the overly long nickname for him. How am I more problematic than Ash? Pakura thought incredulously. Have we been caught? Philip wondered. Aizawa shot him a look that confirmed it. It is my understanding that you have been sneaking out of campus. What you five up to? Aizawa glared. Oh, well, Ash answered by showing Izuku at the background sipping on his drink. It was about Izuku. My problem child. Aizawa spoke. Yes, I'm aware that Izuku has been attending another school. What does it have to do with it? Well, we figured Izuku wouldn't make any friends, and we wanted to do what we could so we would make him feel lonely, Ash explained. So we went and spent time with him during lunch. Aizawa was surprised and looked at the five of them with a raised eyebrow. Let me get this straight. Aizawa said, Are you telling that the reason you snuck out of campus, so that you would spend time with my son? Yes. Jude said, Izuku needed some support, and we felt that we should help him in any way we can, even if it's just joining him for lunch. Aizawa face-bombed, knowing nothing would stop those five. Well, I suppose that's kind of you to help my son. What does Izuku think of this? Hey, Izuku, your father asked how you felt about us sneaking out of school to join you. Ash turned to Izuku, who came to the phone's camera, so Aizawa can see him. Izuku merely shrugged. It didn't hurt me so far, so... Anyway, the only reason why you guys were caught was because Niza decided to go for lunch in the cafeteria and didn't see you there. How the rat knows you were missing among the crowd, I don't know. Aizawa grumbled. Next time you want to sneak out of school, at least do it right, or do a better job of covering your tracks. As for you, Izuku, I want to see what results you yield from spending time with them when you get into H&H Academy. Because when I find out you are slacking... His eyes glowed red, making Ash, Akino, Jude, and Philip eep. Pakura blinked stoically, as did Izuku. I'm fine, Dad. Izuku replied monotonously. That's all I wanted to tell you, Aizawa said. Now, I got a class of Hellspawn to teach. Goodbye. Aizawa hung up, and everyone blinked at the home screen of Ash's phone. Air, Ash asked in an uncertain tone. Was that approval? Izuku merely shrugged. Aizawa had a funny way of showing it, though he couldn't fault him. A normal way would have been boring. Well, we may as well continue what we're doing. You've got a long 2 months of training ahead of you before you get into H&H Academy. Akino replied with a chuckle. Izuku sighed. It could have been more boring, he supposed. In the following months during Izuku's training, new aspects of his quirk came to light. While none of them could help with quirks because they were technically quirkless, since their quirks mutated, they knew others that have quirks that would be willing to help him. It was too much having a quirk alongside aura and psychic abilities at first, and took time and practice alongside his quirk to become accustomed to. Izuku would tell what quirk factor people as now and press on it to nullify their effects on him. It's not seeing it per se, but he could feel it, kind of like how most people can observe and realize someone's weakness, except it was much stronger than that. This was tested by them bringing one of their friends, Alexis Zhao, who was a girl with black messy hair and cool gray eyes. Zhao Alexis. Quirk, commander. Description: Alexis assigned someone as her commander. Whatever her commander tells her to do, as long as she's reasonably able to do, she can do without strain on her body. However, she cannot take another task until she finishes her current task, and cannot choose more than one commander at a time. What he could see, as long as he could see someone directly, was highlights of where their quirk factor is. For different people, there were different colors. At first, that aspect was a little annoying as he couldn't turn it on and off at his will, and seeing the colorful highlights was troublesome. Eventually, he managed to get used to it and ignored it unless he was fighting and was actively looking for their weaknesses. It was 1 week before he was due in H&H Academy, and Izuku still didn't expect much from the hero course. This was especially true when he figured out the hero course entrance exam, which was robots. Izuku just knew that those with non-offensive quirks would not be able to get in, which was just typical. Ash had asked if he wanted to visit his mother with him. Since Izuku had no better plans, he agreed. He called up Present Mike to confirm he was visiting Ash's mother before going into the house with him. Hey, Mum, this is Izuku, who I call my little brother. Ash introduced. Hello, Ketchum-san. Izuku said politely. Oh, no. Call me Delia. Or Mum. Delia gushed. It's been a while since I saw you, Ash. How you been? Are you eating properly? Are you changing your underwear? Mum. Ash was embarrassed. Izuku was a little amused, as he didn't expect Delia to ask that underwear question. Maybe he could like this woman. Oh, and also you got mail, his mother announced. It's from the school. She handed him an envelope that had the school emblem at the top left-hand corner. Ash felt that there was something inside the envelope, and when he tore it open, a badge fell out of the envelope. Ash turned the badge, and his mouth opened. It said, Student Council President. He read the letter, which was congratulating him as the teachers had voted him to be the new Student Council President. And of course, he has to prepare a speech for the convocation. Honey, what is it? His mother asked, and Ash showed her the badge. Oh, I'm so proud. Delia swept him up into a hug. My baby boy, new Student Council President. What say we have a celebration? You can call up your friends, too. Ash nodded and went to call up his friends, as his mother decided to get a cake from a nearby store to celebrate his new position. I can't believe I got chosen. I mean, Aizawa-sensei always called me Problem Child 1. Ash chuckled. Izuku looked down, brow furrowed. He wondered what this position entailed, since Ash seemed excited about it. Then again, Ash was the type to love to be constantly doing something. Izuku later grimaced as everyone from class 2 to 1, soon to be 3 to 1, coming over to celebrate, with some like Pakura bringing food over. Ash was chuckling as some of them began eating the food with gusto, and had to laugh even harder when some of his classmates began snatching food, and there were arguments, but intervened when they started to use their quirks on each other. Izuku had his notebook open and was scribbling down notes on the quirks he had seen being used. As he took notes, he heard that Pakura became the vice president, Akino became the secretary, Jude was a discipline I/C, and Philip was a treasurer. Meanwhile, Ash himself decided to eat while preparing his speech. He figured he thinks best while he ate something small. What did you got there? A boy with a tall and muscular build and dirty blonde hair along with tawny brown eyes asked, munching on a burger. Yurovich Randolph. Quirk, Zimic. Description allows him to mimic and master any quirk that the user's been hit with. However, the person needs to know the inner workings of that quirk in order to utilize it fully, which he is too idiotic to do. Quirk analysis notes. Izuku deemed this Randolph boring. While his quirk was possibly one of the most powerful quirks around, he was too dumb to even use it correctly. So Ash got that badge. Pakura looked like she expected it. I got the vice president position. That's great. Izuku nodded absent-mindedly as Willow curled on her lap and started sleeping. Why come out if you're tired? Pakura mumbled, sighing. Izuku shrugged. Maybe she wanted to stay with you. At the distance, he heard Ash's childhood friend Gary shout, Hey, Ashy boy, as he walked up to Ash. Although they were the same age, they were in different grades, Gary being a future second year instead of third. Ready for your new responsibilities? Definitely. Ash replied, grinning. Oh, Gary, Quirk, summoning Blastoise. Description allows him to summon a familiar named Blastoise to aid him in battle. Moveset is dependent on the dust used to fuel the summon. They weren't exactly close friends, because it was hard to be close friends with the most popular boy in school, since he had such a busy social calendar. But close enough that they had been over to each other's houses to play during the summer. Although once, when Ash was at Gary's house, his grandfather, Professor Oak, the physics teacher in H&H Academy, was baking a bunch of homemade granola at that time, and the smell of burnt oatmeal was kind of overpowering. So, new student council president, huh? Gary smirked. How did you know? Ash was surprised. Well, aside from everyone else here talking about your new student council positions. Gary smirked. Come on, Ashy boy, you aren't being subtle. His tone was taunting. Deku, you aren't being subtle. A voice sneered. Izuku sat upward with a jolt, his notebook dropping. His head was hurting. Something was wrong. Something was wrong. Whose voice was that? Why did his heart feel like it was skipping around with fear and his mind being clouded? He looked down, finding that he had clenched his fingernails so hard it was bleeding. Pakura was at his side without second thought. Izuku. There was a choking gasp, and then he looked up at Pakura. Are you all right? Pakura had hovered her hands above him, as if she was afraid to touch him. Izuku shook his head, and Pakwa gulped. She wasn't very good at comforting people. Are you hurt? Tell me what's wrong. Ash coaxed, kneeling down next to him. He vaguely heard Jude telling everyone to keep their distance. I don't know what's wrong, came the boy's low voice. My head hurt so much, and there was this voice. It said, Deku, you aren't being subtle. Ash and Pakura looked at each other and nodded. Pakura and Gary took Izuku to Ash's room to rest, while Akino phoned Delia to ask her to buy some aspirins as well. Ash himself turned to face the rest of class 3-1. Did he have a memory jolt? A pretty blonde-haired girl with chocolate-brown eyes asked quietly, Morai, Ilia, Quirk. Freeze command. Description. Allows her to freeze a target's movements merely by the snap of her fingers and looking at the opponent. This allows her to get hits in while the opponent is immobilized. Ash nodded. From his reaction, I wouldn't say the memory was a good one. It must have been you and Gary. Both of you are childhood friends, and whatever Gary said must have been similar to what someone from his past said to him. Philip agreed. Ash turned to a frail-looking boy sitting in a wheelchair with dark brown hair, with a left violet eye and a right platinate blue eye. Stratos. Did you figure out anyone from his past that could have said whatever he remembered? Ramirez Stratos Quirk. Quirk detection. Description. Allows him to detect if someone has a quirk, and also exactly what quirk they have. Stratos nodded. Yes. I thought Aizawa and Yamada-sensei was investigating. Jude interrupted. Yes, but the thing is, they're investigating the school, not a person specifically. I think they should look into that boy named Bakugo Katsuki. Unfortunately, he had the perfect mix of his mother's and father's quirk. So everyone praised him and put him on a pedestal. Made him think he was superior. He's planning on applying for the hero course in our school. Furthermore, their mothers were good friends, so they grew up with each other. Went to the same preschools, grade schools, middle schools, you get the drift. Philip added, but when Izuku was diagnosed quirkless, you can find out everything in the file. I'm going to make a call to Aizawa-sensei. Ash told them when he looked into the file. Somewhere else in Mizudafu, Aizawa was distracted from his paperwork by the sound of his phone's ringtone. It was some song Ash had set, so that he would know when the boy called. Catchy tune. Present Mike joked. They had exchanged numbers since Aizawa adopted Izuku. Most of the time, they only texted each other on Izuku's well-being, but the fact that the boy was calling meant something was probably off. Aizawa answered the phone without a second thought, although he heaved this sigh. Ketchum, this better be good. Izuku had a memory jolt, but unfortunately, it was not a good memory. We might have found out someone who might be detrimental to his mental health. Immediately, Aizawa was up and capture weapon at the ready with Present Mike reaching for the doorknob but hesitated. They didn't have Ash's address. Ketchum, what is your address? When they were given the address, they went sprinting across the city. They were at Ash's house in less than half an hour. They immediately tried for the doorknob and was surprised to find it unlocked. Everyone from Class 2-1, or soon-to-be Class 3-1, was looking grim. The only one missing was Pakura, whom they assumed was with Izuku. Present Mike looked serious for once. All right, what's going on? Ash stepped forward and handed him a USB and a file. We found something or someone who could jolt Izuku's memories. However, I think it is better for him to be kept away. Present Mike opened the file and gasped as he read the information. Is all of this true? Ash nodded. Yeah, evidence is in the USB for corroboration. Most unfortunately, Izuku did follow through with the suicide. Akino added, but he was all right now. Aizawa thought, upon seeing all of 3-1 shifting uncomfortably, he just knew they had something to do with Izuku's current condition. Where's the little listener? Yamada questioned. Ash gestured for them to follow, and they went into the room to find him curled up in a ball on the floor, clutching his chest and struggling to form coherent words. Pakura was trying to comfort him, while Willow was meowing worriedly. Present Mick's eyes widened, and he rushed forward, dropping to his knees and pulling his adopted son to lean against him. Pakura used a napkin to wipe away his sweat. It's all right, little listener. We're here, okay? Everything is all right. Just breathe with me. Hizashi assured, exaggerating his breaths to help the boy steady his own breathing so he could talk. can you tell me what happened? He asked gently. Pakura frowned. Gary, Ash's childhood friend, said a phrase that was similar to who I presume was his childhood friend saying the same, but not in a nice way. He had a memory jolt, and hence this panic attack. Apparently, that someone used to call him Deku, which means useless. Mike narrowed. He was sure that it was a bully Izuku remembered. Meanwhile, Aizawa was reviewing the information that he received from Philip and the files they acquired from Alder Middle School. He grinned as he knew he had enough evidence to shut down the school and understood why Ash did not want Izuku to go back to Alder Middle School. As for this Bakugo Katsuki, however, we could always put Izuku in the hunter course. A girl with a brown blonde hair tied in ponytail and Persian blue eyes suggested. While she was shorter than most of them, she was more muscular compared to most of the girls. Goose Anna Quirk, body part enhancement. Description: allows her to make specific parts of her body stronger by deactivating other parts of the body for compensation. For instance, if she wants to make her punches harder, she deactivates the functions in her legs. Aizawa objected to this. No, he has the makings of a hero. I don't wish to ruin Bakugo's hero dreams, but I also don't want him anywhere near Izuku. Please understand. Ash told Aizawa, upset on Izuku's behalf. That boy, it wasn't enough that he bullied Izuku. No, he actually suicide baited him. Aizawa sighed, and then looked at 3-1. Don't worry, I'll do something about this. You really will? Ash was hopeful. Yes, don't worry. I know how much you care for my problem child, and it's not right for him to face his bully, which could be hindering towards his own mental health, especially since I want him in the hero course as his guardian. I'll talk to Nizu about this and get this taken care of. Aizawa promised. While he knew what they did was probably borderline illegal, he couldn't blame them. After all, hunters were much more willing to stoop to unscrupulous methods to get their objective, and it wasn't as if anyone was actually harmed. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei. Ash smiled as the others also thanked him. Please, make sure he doesn't meet Bakugo Katsuki again. Ash pleaded. Aizawa nodded in acknowledgement. While they were losing their chance at him regaining his memories faster, maybe forgetting this lead was for the best. After all, Bakugo Katsuki most likely wasn't the most positive person in Izuku's memories anyway. Izuku didn't need to remember that part. When Izuku had went home with Aizawa and Yamada-sensei, as the celebration was cut short, Ash turned to his class. So a powerful jolt can get him to remember certain things. A bespectacled boy with combed-down black hair, with what looked like an antenna sticking up the top of his head, and bangs parted on the right side, with gray eyes observed. Interesting. Song Shura, Quirk, God's area. Description: allows him to set a small area around himself, allowing him to do whatever he pleased to anyone within that area. While I am usually unopposed to him regaining his memories, he doesn't need to know how he got involved in procedure in the first place. Ash glared at Shura as if it was his fault. Shura shrugged. Midoriya Inko asked me to save her son, so I did. I get to test Stratos' latest project. The boy gets the powers he always dreamed to be a hero. It's a win-win for everyone. When Ash was silent, Shura said, What? It's not as if I was the one who drove him to suicide. Ash sighed. Never mind. What's done is done. There's no hiding the fact that he knew Bakugo Katsuki now, considering he has his notebooks on that boy, and his analytical prowess is too high. What we can prevent is the proximity being those two from being too close. Tonight's setback is unfortunate, but we must do the best we can to help. We still can find other ways to restore his personality and memories. Philip agreed. But would he actually be the same again? Anna questioned. Ash shook his head. Most likely not. After all, the aura and psychic abilities, along with his talents, originally belonged to him. Upon saying to him, everyone looked solemn, as they knew Ash was referring to the classmate they lost. Ash privately mourned the loss too. Hopefully he can recover from this. Meanwhile, Izuku looked down at his hand in his room, wondering what just happened to him. It was almost as if he felt fear of that person whose voice he had heard. But he never met that person before, right? For the first time, he had faced something unexpected. Maybe his life wouldn't be so boring after all. Feeling all right, Izuku? Anything I can get you? Present Mike offered as he entered his room, as Carapin curled up on his lap. What? Izuku blinked, petting Carapin. I know nothing, I guess. Do you want me to talk about something else? Present Mike offered with a grin. If you want. Izuku shrugged. Tell me something I don't know. Present Mike grinned and launched into the story about the systems that had been in place ever since Udata High became H&H Academy, or H&H High, or Triple H. He talked about how every student is now ranked on a star system that is based on the individual's quirk power, contribution to the school, achievements, grades, and good behavior, among other things. Students can receive one of 5 ranks: no star, single, double, triple, and special. Their rank is displayed by the appropriate number of stars pinned on the collar of their school blazer, and may grant them extra privileges or discipline depending on the rank. Anyway, the star ranking also determines the student's dorm rooms and room assignment, food portions, cleaning time chores, and monthly allowance. Present Mike blabbed. So the star enclosed in a circle is... Izuku remembered seeing them on Ash and the others. That's the highest rank special star. They are the true geniuses of the academy. Out of the entire school, Ketchum, Amuri, Chaveo, Harrison, Robinson, the male Song, Ramirez, and Togata are the only ones with a rank so far, although Heido and Namajiki are close to getting 1 too, and most of them are from the Hunter course. Izuku pointed out dryly. Well, little listener, that's because the Hunters have talents that are outside of being a hunter. They make contributions to other aspects in society, and in school too. Present Mike cheerfully supplied. Of course, they are former ultimates, after all. Izuku thought, between you and me, we're planning for the school to be a boarding school, since we're already housing the Hunter students in dorms. You'll be living with your classmates. Isn't it great? Present Mike went on. I suppose. Izuku didn't know how to feel about that. Scratching at Carapin's ears. He predicted that there would be something that would decide their star rank once he got into H&H Academy. Maybe a test to see their quirks? If Aizawa was the one conducting it, he bet that he would threaten to expel the person who came in last or something. He allowed himself a huff of very slight laughter at that thought. Feeling better? Present Mike asked his adoptive son. Izuku nodded, not saying anything. Thanks, Pops. No problem. Present Mike smiled reassuringly. You get some rest, all right? However, instead of getting rest, Izuku browsed on his phone. Apparently, he had it on silent or was too preoccupied with his thought, as there were a lot of notifications, most likely from Ash and the others. Sure enough, they were. Academy's champion, 10:24 p.m. Hey, Izuku. Hope you're all right. Hope you got home safe. Let me know, yeah? We're worried. Academy's idol, 10:27 p.m. Izuku, please give me a call when you get the chance. I know it's hard on you, but I am here for you. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you... King of Games, 10:36 p.m. Don't worry, we told Yamada and Aizawa-sensei. Please don't do anything as foolish as to meet Bakugu. We should have told you more, but Bakugu isn't the best person to help restore your memories. We can help you. So, at the last message, he began to reach for his volumes of notebooks he was almost sure he wrote. Maybe he would find something else there that would explain his current condition. What he did find was that he apparently was extremely fascinated with a quirk named Explosion, belonging to someone named Bakugu Katsuki, or rather, Kakin. He also noticed that he had followed this person for a very long time, ever since they were around 3 or something. Izuku could tell that this Bakugu Katsuki didn't have a good personality from the written entries. He was sure that someone who was always praised for his powerful quirk, and was told by everyone he would make a good hero, since he was a kid would have it in their head that they would. Children were impressionable, after all. He wouldn't be surprised if Bakugu used his quirk on others just to prove a point. He wondered why he kept close to him despite this fact. Maybe he was stupid or something. If he was right, then this Bakugu would have plans to apply to the same school and to the same course Izuku was put in. If they meet again, he was sure Bakugu would not greet him with happiness. He'll charge towards him, his explosion quirk at the ready. probably with a right hook, as stated in that notebook. Was he part of why Izuku woke up in the hospital? Why Ash refused to let him attend Aldred Junior High, and to want to collect evidence against them? No wonder they never told him. While Izuku understood, he wasn't exactly a kid. How boring. Izuku closed the notebooks. This person was too boring to bother about, being too predictable. After all, the insult was not even clever. If he was trying to call him useless or worthless, at least be creative. What made him puzzle was, why didn't the information trigger any more memories for him? If he knew that boy before, was there something missing? There is no reason we'll ever meet again. After all, he's boring. His quirk, his behavior, his entire existence is boring to me. He also had a feeling he wouldn't need to think about that boy again anytime soon. Aizawa arrived in H&H Academy and went on his way to visit Nizu, documents and USB in hand. Meanwhile, Nizu was in his office going through documents. He was informed that Aizawa had arrived, and Nizu had him come through to his office. Aizawa arrived, looking grim. "Why, hello there, Eraserhead." Nizu greeted with a smile. Aizawa sighed heavily as he sat across from Nizu's desk. "Thanks for agreeing to see me." He replied monotonously, "Not a problem. So what can I do for you?" Nizu asked, "It must be important if you're asking for a private meeting." "Well, it has to do with Bakugo Katsuki, one of the entrance exam applicants of the hero course." "Ah, yes." Nizu said with what looked like a plastered smile. He had the highest marks in the practical, with no rescue points. All brute force. Most unfortunate. The student council has alerted me to some rather alarming things. I have reasons to believe that there would be a problem if he is placed within proximity of my charge. Aizawa informed him. "I also have the belief that Alder is guilty for many things, including false records for certain students and quirk-based discrimination." "Really?" Nizu was interested. "Do you have evidence?" "Unfortunately," Aizawa said, handing the file and USB over, "I do. Robinson has taken a hack into the security footage and the school's computers to extract everything we need." The creature hummed softly, solemnly, as he went through everything in every video in silence. For once, Nizu wasn't smiling at all. Paws clasped together, he said, "I'm terribly sorry to hear this, Eraserhead. I tried to look for any falsities in the evidence, but unfortunately they were all legit." Aizawa informed, "I'm already setting up a case against Aldera, and you will have my backing." Nizu assured, "What do you want to do with him?" Aizawa sighed, "I wish to keep my charge away from this boy. If needed, I will transfer Izuku to the hunter course to do so, if he does get in the hero course." "I see. That wouldn't do at all." A pause, and then, "I will see to it that the boy is kept from Midoriya as far away as possible." Nizu said this with a toothy grin. Aizawa nodded, as this was the best he could hope for. As he stood up, Nizu said, "Oh, and do call down our lovely council members. We need all the hands to sort out the written papers from the entrance exam." Aizawa grinned savagely. It was because of this that Ash and the others had to return to school to help the teachers sort out the written exams for each of the applicants and to match the files to the corresponding paper. Ash nodded to the student council members, who were grumbling at having to return to school when it was a holiday. All of them were wearing a pen blue blazers and white dress shirts and red tie with matching skirt/pants. They also wore badges that said their student council position. Come on, where's the smiles? We aren't setting a good example to the students. Mirio, who was the new public relations director, reminded them, "As student council, we go beyond to serve the school, remember?" "All right. Well, I suppose we'll get to work then." Ash grimaced at having to sort them, including the ones that probably wouldn't get into H&H Academy. As they started working on each file, Ash asked, "Lance, report. What's the status of the entrance exam?" He had asked Philip to place a bug in the arenas so that it would live stream it back to their monitors. Lance was the one assigned to watch it. Most unfortunately, Bakugo Katsuki had the highest amount of points in the practical exam. Lance replied, "Without any rescue points, I might add. Dragon Lance Quirk, summoning Dragonite. Description: allows him to summon Dragonite to aid him into battle or even flight transportation. Moveset is dependent on the dust used to fuel the summon. Unfortunate. Hato Nijire blinked. He's a bully. Philip replied. I say if he gets in, we be extra vigilant around him. Forgive and forget. I say we ought to give him a second chance. Diantha started, only to be cut off by Pakura. He suicide baited someone, and that someone went through with it. Pakura said grimly, he also uses Quirk on someone who couldn't defend themselves. Jude added angrily. Every member of the council gasped, even those from the hunter's side. He has all the chances when he was growing up. He's going to give this entire school a bad name. Ash told them, I don't care if he has a powerful quirk. That alone doesn't make you a good hero. I have to agree. Mirio frowned, skimming to the answers of the exam for this brown-haired girl named Uraraka Achiko. That kind of bullying is not okay. Regardless, it's our job to be fair and impartial. Ash shook his head. We won't do anything to stop him from entering. However, if he does get into the school, I want you all to monitor his behavior. He inwardly hoped that Aizawa-sensei had talked to Nizu like he had promised he would. Meanwhile, Izuku was at home playing Go Fish with present Mike to take his mind off things. At Izuku's side, there was a pile of chocolates that he won since Aizawa would never allow Izuku to gamble with money, and he would be unhappy if he found out. Carapin was watching them play with mild interest. Got any fours? Present Mike asked Izuku. Go Fish. Izuku said, not even looking up from his remaining card. Darn. Hizashi quipped, picking a card from the pile. He looked at his cards again. Got any eights? Hizashi finally asked. Go Fish. Izuku replied. Oh, for Pete's sake. Hizashi hissed. Got any fives? Go Fish. Izuku shrugged. Stop having no cards. Present Mike yelled as he picked out another card and dealt a pair. Not my fault you asked for the cards I don't have. Izuku replied dryly. Do you have any twos? Hizashi gave him the requested card, and he put his remaining 2 cards down. I win, Izuku stated, as he once again beat Pops at card games. He almost said, how boring, but refrained from doing so. You're either very good or very lucky, little listener. Hizashi grumbled, just as the door opened and Aizawa came home. Oh, you're back, Sho. Hizashi leapt up to greet his husband with a kiss. Seems like our problem child won by a landslide, he remarked as he saw the piles of chocolates Izuku had won. Izuku shrugged as he opened a wrapper and popped the chocolate in his mouth. He guessed that taste was all right, nothing particularly outstanding. Yeah, he beat me in every game. Hizashi pouted. So how did the talk go? Aizawa gave a creepy grin. Very well, he replied. He then turned to Izuku. This just came in. Here. He tossed it at Izuku, who caught it easily with one hand. What's going to happen after this? I can already predict what will happen. I already know because I am loved by talent. Izuku inwardly shook his head as he received his acceptance letter to tell him he got into the hero course, Class 1A. He could count the number of people he could not predict with one hand. One of them was, well, tomorrow will be a new day. Ash told himself, back in his apartment. He ticked the things he had packed off the list. Everything is packed. My outfit is also over there ready to be worn when I wake up, and my speech, all written and ready. My new timetable also had been printed from the school website. Just then, his mom came into the room and sank down on the bed beside him. How are you doing, Ash? His mom asked. All ready for school tomorrow? It's a big day. 3rd year. I can't believe you're in the 3rd year of high school already. Yeah, Mum. Ash replied. Everything's great. Don't worry about me. Ash replied. You're the one I don't need to worry about. Delia said, patting him on the leg. Well, honey, becoming a student council president is great, but you know the responsibilities. I don't need to remind you of that, though. I know what a good head you've got on your shoulders. Thanks, Mom. Ash nodded. Well, good night, honey. Don't forget to pack you-know-what. You don't want to be known as the president who doesn't wear you-know-what, do you? Mom. Ash shouted, embarrassed. See you in the morning. His mum laughed. See you. Ash mumbled as he went to bed. Routine carried Ash as he got ready for his day the next day. When he was done, he stood by the door to bade his mother goodbye. "Well, bye, Ash." His mother kissed him on the cheek. "Love you. Love you too, Mum," he replied as he made his way to the train station. He sat on the train towards his school and listened to some of the music he had downloaded on his iPhone. He bobbed his head gently to his music. He then spotted someone familiar and tapped his hand on his shoulder. Izuku turned to see Ash and raised a hand in acknowledgement. "It's your first day of school. Are you excited?" Ash questioned, "How is it any different from middle school?" Izuku's brows were furrowed. Izuku was wearing a different uniform. While they had the same long-sleeve button-up white shirt and a red tie, Izuku's uniform was a gray jacket with blue-green stripes instead of black with gold stripes, with indigo dye color pants instead of black. "You'll see." Ash grinned, shaking him ecstatically as he babbled about the directions to classroom 1A for his benefit. Soon, the train arrived at their station, and they were walking towards their school, one for first time ever, the other back for his last year. "Look, doesn't this look great?" Ash smiled as Izuku took in the entirety of H&H Academy. "It's bigger than my middle school." Izuku had to admit that. "Come on, let's get to your class." Ash encouraged as he dragged him inside. Inside, they were greeted by the morning din as the shuffling of changing shoes were heard. Girls who hadn't seen each other since school ended last spring break let out piercing shrieks and hugged one another. Guys high-fived other guys. Teachers stood in doorways, clutching steaming mugs of coffee and gossiping with other teachers. "I have to get to the council room to assign patrol shifts. See you at the welcome back convocation." Ash asked. Izuku nodded silently. "You know how to get to 1A, right?" Ash checked one more time. Izuku nodded again as he went to his assigned locker to change his shoes before making his way to his classroom. He almost wished Ash would accompany him, but he knew that the Hunters section was too far from his classroom. The door to room 1A stretched high above Izuku, obnoxiously large. He looked up at it with Ash, his mouth turned down. Just which student was so large they needed a door that big? There's no point standing here, dwelling on possibilities. Izuku thought, may as well get this over with. With that, he opened the classroom door and entered. When Izuku opened the door, though, he was mildly surprised to note that he was not the first person to arrive. In fact, the title actually belonged to a blue-haired boy with glasses and had a strict posture. Izuku mused he must come from some elite school where all the students appear to be a stickler for rules. The boy looked up when Izuku stepped into the room, and he immediately stood up. Izuku could tell by his posture he must have been some sort of student leader before. "How boring. Very respectable of you to arrive so early," the boy said, gesturing wildly with his hands, like he was karate chopping the air. Izuku gave him an unimpressed look. "My name is Ida Tenya, from Sumai Academy." "Ah." So he related to Ida Tensei, who was the pro-hero in Genium. Izuku gave him a blank stare, before finally saying, "Midoriya Izuku, I didn't see you in the entrance exam." Ida remarked, "From recommendations?" "Something like that." With that, he pushed past Ida to search for a seat. He found it and sat down. Ida sat back down in his own seat and was thankfully silent. If Izuku was being honest, he did not feel right in this class, like he would never truly fit in with them. It was almost as if he belonged to Ash's class for some reason, but could not quite put his finger as to why. His head hurt, trying to think deep into this matter for some reason. He sighed as he extracted a notebook to sketch a hunter hero costume. Maybe it was nothing, since Ash and the others did care for him when he woke up. He probably just missed them, since they often came over to see him. Izuku ignored everything as the rest of the class filed in. They were loud, and he was inwardly groaning. It wasn't the usual noise Ash and the others being, which was soothing and reminded him of home. It was irritating and unpleasant chattering about some boring topics. Something yellow caught his eye, and he looked up. He saw some huge yellow caterpillars slithering into the room, while everyone else was just chatting away. The zipper for the caterpillar unzipped, revealing. Did he really have to slither in like that? Izuku thought incredulously, as he made eye contact with Aizawa, who looked just as bored as him. Seriously? Izuku could not help but mutter out loud. Somehow, his voice carried over to the others despite the fact that he wasn't talking loudly, and his voice could have been drowned out by the others' volumes. His voice made everyone look up. Their chatters also died down. "If you're here to socialize, then get out," Aizawa stated, wrapped up in his sleeping bag on the floor. "This is the hero course, and it took you 8 seconds for you to quiet down." He scanned the classroom, setting eyes on each and every one of the students that he would be seeing almost every day for way too long a length of time, especially Izuku since he also saw him at home. Not that any student knew except for those in class 3-1. Aizawa suspected his husband and Midnight were probably making bets on how many people he would expel this year, even going so far as to bet on how many he would expel on the first day. He was sure that yearly betting pool was happening by now, and wondered morbidly who would win this year. He sighed. That was just to make sure the students were prepared for the hardships of the hero course and ultimately becoming heroes. Ever since the hunter course was merged in school, the first day was crucial in deciding their star ranks, so that they would know the allowance, rooming, and amount of food and benefits they'd get for being an outstanding student. For those with 0 potential, he could just as easily give them the very rare no-star rank. But he felt expulsion is better since there would likely be discrimination towards the no-star ranks. On the other hand, not expelling no-stars would prepare them for the real world, where it's the person against the whole world. But he refused to teach anyone with 0 potential. No matter. "My name is Aizawa Shota. I'm your homeroom teacher. Change into your PE clothes and meet me at the training fields in 10 minutes. Without another word, the man turned around and shuffled off down the hall, leaving 20 puzzled teenagers in his wake. Well, 19 baffled teenagers and 1 unamused one. Izuku frowned. He really wanted to see Ash's speech in the opening ceremony. Oh, well, he can always use a tablet to hack the cameras to watch during lunch. He promptly grabbed the gym clothes with his name on it and left the change without a glance back to his class. His action must have shaken him out, as when he left, he heard the scrambles for their gym clothes. 10 minutes later, everyone in Class 1A was decked in their PE clothes and stood assembled in front of the huge training grounds, a large field just outside the main building filled with exercise equipment. Izuku took a moment to look around at his other classmates. Some stood out a little to him, like the multi-limbed boy with a mask, a pink girl with horns, the girl with earphone jacks as earlobes, and was that a boy with a bird's head? His eyes landed on Todoroki, and he refrained from rolling his eyes. Of course he would be in his class. He didn't have very long to analyze before Aizawa drew their attention, explaining the reason for their being out there. He stood at the back of the crowd, next to Todoroki and a girl with a huge black ponytail. Quirk appreciation test. The brown-haired girl, Uraraka couldn't help but repeat. Aizawa looked at the class and waited until all of them paled under his gaze before continuing. In middle school, you all had to do a series of physical education tests. Midoriya. Of course, he was just zeroing on me. Izuku thought, straightening his back when he was called. "Sensei," he said, tonelessly, startling everyone. "You are the only one who didn't need to go through any exam to get here," Aizawa stated. Everyone gasped at that and wondered how he even got in without taking an exam. Even the 2 beside him were giving him incredulous looks. Ignoring the class, Aizawa asked, "What was your best score on the softball pitch at your old middle school?" Would I remember something as boring as that? Izuku wondered what Aizawa was playing at. Aizawa nodded, then tossed him a softball. "I want you to go ahead and do it again, except this time. Use whatever you can get it as far." Izuku sighed, but stepped up to the circle painted at Aizawa's feet. He looked at the ball, wondering what he should do with it. He raised a brow, as if to ask if he was sure. Aizawa just gave him another stiff nod. "Use your quirk however you see fit, just so long as you do not leave the circle." Izuku gave him a bored look, then shrugged. He placed the softball on the ground and concentrated an ability he borrowed from Ash on the train earlier. A field of gold appeared around the circle, then dissipated. Everyone watched as the softball suddenly floated upward, as Izuku concentrated aura to anchor himself down. So he didn't float as well since he was still within the field. He watched unblinkingly as the ball went higher and higher, ignoring the baffled looks from his classmates all around him. How do I deactivate this again? Izuku tried to remember. Aizawa followed the tiny as it vanished up into the sky, staring after it until it went out of sight. He turned back to Izuku with a sigh, knowing just whose ability this actually belonged to. That's not coming back down, is it? Izuku shrugged nonchalantly. The field would probably wear off. Didn't expect this, Aizawa admitted, but he was smiling behind the scarf. But my point stands. The quirk-free standards the country's school curriculum currently has does not reflect your true skill sets. Today, I want all of you to use your quirks and whatever abilities you have during each test and show what you're really capable of. This is boring. I just want to be done with it. Izuku thought, wow, we get to use our quirks. This will be fun. The pink girl exclaimed. Izuku gave her a, I am disappointed in you, look when she spoke. Mina realized it would have probably been better to keep her mouth shut from the glare, as she was receiving from Aizawa. Fun, you say? How about we make it more fun? Last place gets expelled. The class gawked at this. Aizawa's addendum that the lowest scoring student would be expelled on the spot really put everything at stake. To Izuku, however, it didn't matter. If he was expelled, he could always go to the hunter's side. But that isn't fair. The brown-haired girl with pink cheeks exclaimed. Not fair? Natural disasters, villains, and quirk-themed incidents are not fair. This is simply weeding out those who can be heroes from those who can't. Aizawa shot back. This is boring. However, he was cut off with Aizawa saying, also, no half-assing it, because this quirk apprehension test will also decide your star rank. He gave this look to Izuku as he said this. Izuku fought the urge to sigh as he knew Ash and the others would be unhappy if he didn't get the highest rank he could get. I can't use my quirk on these tests, considering it won't help me with my physical capabilities. Izuku thought, wondering how he could use his nullification quirk to help him in these tests. How boring. Izuku watched as Ida used his engines to dash across the 50-meter track, earning a whooping 3.04 seconds for it. Izuku lined up at the start line, preparing his quirk and utilizing his talents. He was standing next to Todoroki, who was getting ready as ice. Both boys lined up against each other, the boy turning his face to Izuku as if accessing him. Izuku detected his quirk factor when glancing at Todoroki, it being highlighted in red and blue. A thought occurred to Izuku at that point, and he smirked. He knew how he could apply his quirk to win. Go! Aizawa announced. Todoroki slipped in surprise, as his ice wasn't working to help him slide. Meanwhile, Izuku dashed off like a bullet, meeting the finish line in less than 3 seconds. Todoroki regained his use of his ice once Izuku was done running. But as he had wasted time, his timing was worse than he could have achieved. Todoroki, what are you doing? The ponytail girl asked, frowning. Todoroki ignored her, simply looking at his hand, and wondered what happened. Aizawa face-bombed, knowing what just happened. Izuku must have used his quirk to sabotage Todoroki. Well, he wasn't going to stop Izuku, considering there were no rules against it. The tests were all right, Izuku supposed. Some of them didn't really need the use of his abilities, such as the toe touch and the sidesteps, but his high physical capabilities made sure he made it to the top scores. He wasn't too surprised to find he did better than most of the rest of the class on them on talent alone. He topped the endurance races easily, no abilities or quirks used. The ponytail girl named Momo simply created an entire electric scooter to help her. He admitted she gave him a run for his money for a while, except the scooter jammed at the last second, which meant he emerged the victor. Whether it was his luck or his quirk, Izuku didn't know. But when the grip test happened, Izuku looked bored as every single person looked to him, shock written on their faces. Across the room, the boy with multiple limbs, Mizo Shoji, had a grip tester that he had held with several hands. The screen flashed with a result of 540.0 kilograms. It was impressive, but Izuku held the bent piece of scrap metal. He had used telekinesis on the grip machine to help his grip. Aizawa put a hand over his face, pinching his nose. He seriously needed a word with the problem children of class 3-1 about this. He was almost sure it was one of them that told him to do this, with his prime suspect being Problem Child Zero. When everything was done and they received their final scores, Izuku sighed. It was boring, as he made it to first place. Aizawa had revealed that he'd been lying about expelling the worst-performing student. The great boy, whom Izuku learnt was named Mineta, was bawling in relief. No, it's a lie. He was intending to expel the last student, but felt Mineta had potential. Izuku thought, when the other students yelled in outrage, and Momo was saying she knew about it. Oh, if only Momo knew. After all, Izuku could tell by his smile, there's something more to it. I'll now be giving out your pins for star rank, Aizawa announced. While Aizawa started individually giving out their star ranks by giving them the respective pins, Izuku listened as his classmates discussed their scores while waiting for Aizawa to hand out their star pins. He watched with a blank look on his face as most of them admired their single star pin, with the exception of Todoroki, whom he noticed received 2 star pins, along with Momo. Good for them, he supposed. He inwardly sighed as he felt no satisfaction at the results he got. Mineta wailed as he did not receive a star pin, meaning he was a no star. It's almost unheard of. Could it be? Izuku frowned. Something tells me he wanted to test Mineta. After all, no stars usually would be discriminated in many ways. Finally, he reached Izuku, and he remarked, "You have the makings of a triple. However, I want you to work for it and show fully what you can do. Until then, you will stay as a double." Izuku nodded as he got handed 2 star pins for his collar. Aizawa then said to class, "Only for today, the star rank would not affect anything. However, from tomorrow, you will see how it will affect aspects of your school life." He then gave them a serious look. "Keep working and contributing, and you will earn what you deserve." With that, everyone started to file back into the school, just in time for the bell to ring for lunch, as the Quirk apprehension test lasted a few hours. By the time Izuku changed back to the uniform, pinned the star pins on his collar, and reached the cafeteria, almost all the tables were taken. He noticed that the hunters and heroes, noticeable by differing uniforms, are all sitting at separate sides in the cafeteria. The only time they were mixed was when they were queuing up for food. Izuku got in line for food, only a few people in front of him, Uraraka and Ida. Izuku wore a bored look, but waited his turn. Soon, he was carrying a tray of chicken cutlet and French fries. It was also topped with smoked trout sandwiches and strawberry souffle, along with a glass of Coke. Hopefully he could find somewhere quiet to eat his. "Izuku!" A voice rang out. "Ash!" "Of course." Izuku shook his head and nodded at Ash. "Hello." Ash grinned down at him as he dragged Izuku to his table, which was over at the hunter's half. The second he went over, he could feel the stares of the hero students burning into his back while the hunters all turned to frown at him. Not that he cared, however, since Ash was right by his side. He presumed that the current school situation sucked, though. He was literally the only one wearing a different uniform in the hunter section of the cafeteria. Although the table Ash's friends took could fill 10 people, there was only 5 sitting there, excluding him. As due to their special star ranking, the dishes they get was practically a feast. Looking around, Izuku saw that class 3-1 was occupying the nearby tables around them. Jude, Philip, Aquino, and Pakura greeted Izuku happily when they saw him. "Look what the Ash dragged in." Jude joked. Willow meowed in greeting, as Izuku scratched at her behind her ears. He took a seat across the lunchroom table from Ash, and next to Pakura. He then cut his cutlet. "How was your day so far?" Ash asked, smiling. "Aizawa-sensei used the Quirk apprehension test to decide our star rankings." Izuku stated simply. "Of course he did," Philip said primly from his seat beside Aquino. "So you got a double. Congrats." "Aizawa-sensei said he wanted to access me a bit longer before deciding a triple." Izuku mumbled. "So he made you miss the opening ceremony, huh?" Ash gave a wry smile. "Basically. But I'm going to hack into the cameras to watch your speech, although it will be boring." Izuku shrugged. "Hey!" Ash was offended, as everyone else laughed. Izuku snorted and began to chew. "Chill out, Ash. I'm just teasing." Izuku ended up eating a lot more, as Ash kept transferring some of their food, insisting that he needed to eat more to keep up his aura levels and energy. Aizawa-sensei said that the day is the only day star rank matters. Izuku noted absently while eating. Makes sense. Ash nodded. I mean, you just got your rank, and they need time to build the dorm buildings in accordance to the star rank. Jude agreed. System would probably be the same for you. Lower star rank students stay on the lower floor, where all the smaller rooms are, while higher star rank students stayed in much bigger rooms and better accommodations at the higher floors. They also have to make it such that they can expand the rooms when your star rank increases, or build walls to downsize your room when your rank drops. Akino added, as Izuku ate, he tapped into the tablet to unlock the security in the cameras for the auditorium and found the video footage he wanted. He watched the video while he munched on his meal. This is so lame, Jude muttered, as they started for their traditional seats at the front row of the auditorium. Everyone was staring at them, muttering comments like, Harrison looks as cool as ever, or Chevelle is as demure as always. Jude, you're a committee member of the student council. Set an example. Philip warned. Where's Ash and Pakura, though? Akino asked. The other two shrugged as they sat down, leaving 2 spaces for their friends. Vice Principal Goodshow was trying to get everyone to settle down by saying, Settle down, people. Now, people, please settle down. Over and over again in the microphone. The friends watched as the other students poured in, and the seats around them, except for the 2 seats they booked, are slowly being filled by the other students. Just before the bell rang, in came Ash and Pakura, and everyone was staring at the Academy's champion, Ash, and the Academy's princess, Pakura. Many girls were admiring Ash and commented how he got hot. The 2 of them were greeting the other students who kept shouting hello to them, the way a bride and groom might smile, and nod at people assembled for their wedding, or a king and queen might nod to their populace. Maybe that is true. Boring, but true. They are the king and queen of the school, no matter how much some students might not like to admit it. Izuku commented in his head, Thanks for saving us a seat. Ash said, sitting down with his friends. No prob, Akino replied, as Principal Nizu walked up to the microphone, and the chattering hordes fell silent. Everyone was afraid of Principal Nizu, as he can be extremely scary if he wanted to, especially with his unnerving smile. In fact, there was a rumor that he practices experiments on humans at some basement of the school, and considering his intellect and sadistic streak, Nizu started his welcome speech. Welcome, students, to another school year at H&H Academy. Izuku could tell Ash was only half listening in the footage, since it's probably almost the same every year. But he needed to look like he was paying attention to live to his new title. After that mind-numbingly boring speech on how they should use the coming year to realize their full potential, Vice Principal Charles Goodshow read the highlights of the Student Code of Conduct. No cheating, no violence, no harassment of any kind, includes quirks, or they would be expelled immediately. Finally, after Charles noticed the place was alternatively looking at the clock and longing for it to be lunchtime or sleeping, he finally said, And let's have our new student council president say a few words. Please welcome from the Hunter course, Ash Ketchum. Ash started, as there was thunderous applause as he made his way up to the podium, his speech in hand. He had to adjust the microphone to his own height after the diminutive Charles Goodshow stepped away from it, to amused chuckles from the student body. Anyone could tell by the whispering from the girls that they wanted him. Good morning to Principal Nizu, Vice Principal Goodshow, teachers, and my fellow students. It's an honor to be standing right here in front of you all as your new student council president. And he was cut off by more applause and cheering. But to me, being the new student president is not just about the authority granted. It's also about the huge responsibility I'm ready to take up, as the student council takes care of the upcoming events, and they must make sure that the events go smoothly, the problems that may arise around school, and deal with the feedback of the students. And the last decision would lie in me, the president. Ash hesitated a little when he saw all of them staring at him, hanging on his every word. Go, Ash. His friends whispered. As the president, he or she is the voice of the students, not the voice of himself or herself. And I am very sure everyone in the student council knows this, as they applied to be the new president. Am I right? There were more cheering, mainly from the other members of the student council. Ash smiled. I am grateful to the teachers that had ultimately chosen me. I realized a few factors last year where we only went ahead to organize events, and since it was at the last minute, we didn't spare time to what you have to say, and thus you didn't enjoy the events, and I am deeply sorry for that. Some people shouted, "It's okay." I want to get to understand all you students, not just as classmates, but as people. I know H&H Anonymous helps you all out with problems, but if you need a listening ear, we will always be here for you. From tomorrow on, a feedback box and suggestion box will be open for students to give their opinions on how the council is running and how to improve them, and suggestions on organizing the upcoming events would be welcome. Ash went on. There was murmuring among the students, and I hope that this year we will be able to work together, as no matter our department, no matter our level, we are still one school, H&H Academy. Thank you. Izuku paused the video. Nice speech, he said tonelessly. Ash was embarrassed as the others chuckled. The applause continued long after he's done, and he waited until they finished before Nizu said, "Now, I would like to call upon the new vice president to lead all of you to the school song. Would you all please stand?" Pakura gracefully took her place next to Ash to whistles and cheers as the whole school stood up and started singing the school song, as Pakura started to conduct with her left hand. Hail Alter Mater H&H. May you stand like an evergreen to spread knowledge and develop talents, to teach the ways of trainers, and make us see the importance of respect for others, the friendship and love of our teammates. We'll never forget the advice of friends and teachers. We'll be sure to remember. With you, we march forward courageously with time. And then let us all go, plus ultra. The last phrase was closer to shouting than singing. As the last note was sang, Pakura made a zipping motion, signaling the end of the song. That was when Izuku ended the footage and turned off the tablet. That's probably the real reason why Aizawa didn't attend. He would hate singing the school song. Izuku felt very slight amusement as he thought of the tired Aizawa singing. Looking back down at his remaining food, he began to shovel it into his mouth. Since when did the school have a school song? Izuku wondered, out loud. He didn't remember Aizawa mentioning one. Since Paku's song notes got stolen and somehow made its way to Nizu, Jude scratched his neck. "I made that song up for fun, actually," Pakura admitted. Izuku nodded and let the food hit his tongue, and swallowed it without trouble. The food made by Lunch Rush was all right, he supposed. Nothing on Pakura's cooking, though. Just then Jude said, "Oh, hey, Cynthia." And Izuku looked up to see the same pretty girl, blonde hair and gray eyes, standing beside Izuku. She was wearing the typical uniform that those under the Hunter course wore, and looking at Izuku. Delaney Cynthia. Quirk, glyph magnets. Description: this quirk allows Cynthia to bind by putting a glyph symbol on it. When the glyphs are active, it allows her to accelerate whatever objects the glyphs are on towards each other, like the pull from opposite ends of a magnet. "So, who is this boy?" Cynthia was nodding to him. "Oh, that's Izuku Midoriya." Ash nodded. "Izuku, meet Cynthia." "Hello." Izuku nodded as Cynthia smiled. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm just here to tell you might want to watch out, since everyone has seen Midoriya here. They'd probably try something to deter you from us." Cynthia warned, nodding toward some of those wearing the same uniform as Izuku's, giving them hostile looks. "What are they going to do? Kick me out of the hero course just because I am chummy with you guys?" Izuku shrugged. "If anything, they will kicked out of school because they are spewing nonsense about not getting along just because you guys are hunters. Heroes are supposed to be the ones hate love everyone, not us." Ash agreed. "I mean, at least we don't actively sabotage another one of the fellow students. Even if they do, there's always a surveillance camera." Philip chimed in. "It has nothing to do with getting along with the enemy. It's just their prejudices speaking." Aquino smiled. "Hopefully that is true." Cynthia smiled ruefully. "I do hope we all can learn from each other and maybe form friendships." With that, she left with a wave as she joined her gang of friends Aaron, Flint, and Lucian. "It's only the first day. Nothing bad would happen," he muttered. Pakura nodded in agreement. Izuku felt a little at home for some reason among them, seeing them talk and laugh together. He couldn't put his finger away, though. It was almost like he knew them from a long time ago, like he had been through thick and thin with them. Midoriya, Kaminari, and Mineta was onto him the moment he returned to the classroom. Izuku blinked, wondering what he had done to irk the two. No fair. How come you get to sit with two of the most beautiful girls in school? Kaminari whined. Izuku fought the small urge to facepalm. How boring. Is that all they can think about? He ignored them as he pushed them aside to get to his seat. Unfortunately, Mineta sat behind him and was pestering him. Fortunately, Izuku was good at ignoring the grape-haired idiot until, I'd love to sit at that lunch table too, if only to smother myself into Amuri's big boobs. Mineta drooled. A surge of anger struck him as he turned around and threw Mineta across the classroom with an invisible force. It completely knocked him out. How dare you talk about her like that? Izuku said coldly, walking over to Mineta, Yes, you go, Midoriya. The girl sitting in front of him whooped. She had red hair going down opposite sides in the back, and long bangs as well as fair skin and blue eyes. She was also carrying an ocarina on her neck. By Watto Melody. Quirk, audiokinesis. Description, allows her to play different types of music in a musical instrument. Attacks or effects vary greatly depending on the music melody is currently playing. Midoriya, that is enough. Aizawa sighed, knowing that it could escalate if left up to Izuku. He blamed every single member of class 3-1. Mineta, detention. What did I even do? Mineta wailed. You talked about women in a derogatory way. Izuku replied simply, shooting him a slight disgusted look. He sat down and opened his books, refusing to interact anymore. After school, Izuku went home alone, as the others at clubs to go to or student council duties, and could not accompany him. Dinner rolled around, and they were having Katsudon again. A purring Carapin sat on Izuku's lap beneath the table. After Hizashi had seen Izuku having the most reaction towards Katsudon, he couldn't just not make it again for the boy. Izuku. Mike started. Did you pack everything? Izuku ticked the things he had packed off the list in his head. What is more, my uniform is in the closet to be worn when I wake up. Good. I assume you are ready to move into the dorms, my problem child? Aizawa asked. Izuku shot him a look. His problem child? What did he do to achieve that title? He hadn't done anything yet. Not yet. Aizawa agreed, which made him realize he mumbled it. But you have been in the company of the biggest problem class in school. Moreover, that class is problem child 0. She's going to rub off on you. He glanced at his teacher, as his brows drew together in confusion. How can Pakura cause this much trouble? She was sort of like Ida when it came to the rules. She got the title of student council vice president. For all might's sake, you'll be surprised. Aizawa muttered darkly. Oh, come on, Shota. You can't say those people didn't deserve it. Hizashi chuckled. I'd eat Carapin if nothing happened that didn't involve her within the first week. We had to implement new rules because of 3-1, and most of them involve her. Aizawa glared, a glint of red in his eyes. Meanwhile, at a burger diner, Pakura sneezed while Ash was taking out his wallet to count the money he had while they were in line to buy their food. Having a cold? Ash asked, and Pakura shook her head. Ash smiled and looked down at a photo in his wallet. It was of himself as a 4-year-old and an older boy of around 10 in Times Square. Ash was cheerful, while the other boy was more laid back and casual. That was his older brother, Ashta. He sighed wistfully, as he hadn't seen his brother in over a decade, Ashta having left the family at the age of 10, to who knows where. Probably out there being an underground hero, or perhaps dabbling into shady stuff. Ash never saw his brother after the day he left, and any leads he had turned up dead. Ash assumed he was still alive and in America, which was where their family originated from, and where he went to school for elementary, middle school, and part of high school, until their school fell with them as the only survivors, and they sought refuge here instead. Ash, Pakura, and her brother Shiki ran as fire fell around them, chased by a bunch of their hypnotized schoolmates. Ash barely had a grip on Pakura, as he was bleeding and his leg was injured. Pakura was faring no better. Her healing had reached its limit due to her low aura, and Shiki was also on his last legs with his special ability activated. Ash could tell his limit was nearing as well. There's just too many of them. Pakura cried as she started to stumble. She barely dodged a fireball that was falling from the ceiling, seeing the corridor blocked with burning wood. The three stopped. "We don't have any way out." Ash whispered, "No, we can jump." Shiki was grim. "Brother, you can't possibly mean we won't survive with our aura running low." Pakura protested, "And Ash's aura is depleted." Ash gulped as he looked at how high up they were. "Don't worry, we have our landing strategy." Shiki grinned, taking out his katana. "Ash!" Pakura had a hand on his shoulder, and he looked up. "It's our turn to order." Ash blinked and replied, "Oh, right. Sorry, lost track." He then turned to look at the menu and placed his order to the cashier. "This is going to be a long year." Jude groused as both Pakura and Ash sat down with their orders. "At least we still have Drasna-sensei as our homeroom teacher. If I had Price-sensei first thing in the morning for an entire year, I'd rather die." "Weren't you the one lecturing on how pain makes hunters stronger?" Philip pointed out. "That was about necessary pain in the field." Jude huffed. "This is just painfully unnecessary." Aquino shrugged. "That's what we're going for, isn't it?" "I guess, but hunters with headaches aren't very menacing, are they?" Jude raised a brow. "That implies that you think you're menacing in general, and you definitely aren't," Philip said dryly. Everyone chuckled, since Philip was right. For a hunter, Jude was one of the most sociable, approachable, and pleasant guys to be around. With a career as an actor and model, he had a vast network of friends, allowing him to be very well informed about the happenings. "Not very menacing? The hero students can't even look me in the eye," Jude pointed out. "They can't look at any of us in the eye because they think we are ruthless killers." Ash chimed in, biting into his burger. The talk stopped as they took the cue to eat. After finishing their meal, they left, full and satisfied as they clambered into the car back to school. However, Ash realized he forgot his jacket halfway, and he told them to stop the car. He left the car and ran all the way back to the joint. He stepped into something with a splash sound, and he looked down. Even if it's dark, the smell made him recognize it was blood. "Is someone there?" Ash called. His answer was met with a groan, readying his rapier. He tracked down the pool of blood to find someone slumped against the wall, clearly having a grievous injury, if the blood soaking his front was any indication. From what little can Ash make out, the person was still alive. Activating fire dust to light up the alley, he approached the person with the rapier pointed towards him. The man seemed to be wearing a mask. Ash used telekinesis to rip it off, catching the mask, holding up his lighted rapier to the person's face. He saw, "You." Ash gasped as he recognized Ashta. How could he not recognize his own older brother? "Hey there, little bro." Ashta mustered a smile. Ketchum Ashta. Quirk. Summoning. Description. Allows him to summon an unknown summon, where movesets differ depending on dust used to fuel it. However, because of Ashta's aura, there is something a little different about the summon. "Where were you all this time?" Ash yelled. "No, what are you even doing here? You were supposed to be in America." Ashta chuckled weakly. "I had to come. I had a feeling something would happen here." That made Ash realize Ashta had been watching him. But if he was, "Where were you when our school fell?" "Where only my class survived." Ash kept his rapier pointed at him. Ashta winced as he replied, "Who do you think managed to save you in the first place?" Ash's rapier shook. What did he mean by... Now he thought of it. He didn't remember how he managed to get outside the school with Pakura and Shiki, and assumed it was a gap in his memory. "I didn't need you to protect me from afar. I just wanted you to come home." Ash yelled, not noticing his tears were falling. "I know, Ashura, I wanted it too, but I was already a dangerous criminal. I couldn't without putting you or Mum in danger." Ashta rasped. Ash narrowed his eyes. "Did it matter? I am not a hero. I am a hunter. We don't leave anyone behind." "I know. You probably hate me for not being there for you, for Mom. But I was always there, just always out of sight." Ashta smiled sadly before coughing out blood. "Shit." Ash attempted to call for Pakura to help heal him, only Ashta grabbed his arm, and Ash felt his aura pour into him. The shadows seemed to have shifted as he did so. Ashta had his eyes closed as he uttered a last wish. Don't repeat the mistakes I made. You don't have to be alone. In fact, I'll make sure of that. Ashta's grip went slack, and Ash widened his eyes. Ashta was gone, a ghost of a smile on his face. Ash widened his eyes. He dropped his rapier, which clattered on the floor. Brother? Brother? Ash scrambled closer to him. He checked, and there was no pulse. Ashta wasn't breathing. Was this real? Ash felt like he was free-falling, with no hope of ever landing on the bottom. He could almost imagine the same fire that consumed their school around them as he stared blankly at Ashta's corpse. No, there has to be some ability, some quirk to bring him back. This couldn't be the end. A hand was on his shoulder. I'm sorry, Ash. He's gone. Jude was distraught. It appeared they had arrived just in time to see Ashta's death. All of them knelt around Ashta's corpse, looking mournful, although they didn't know him much. Ash had to be dragged to the car as Philip made a call and reported the corpse, in hopes that he would be able to get a proper funeral. Ash felt numb as they entered dorm lobby, where the rest of 3 to 1 was around, just chatting. They all stood up when they saw the looks on their faces. Pakura shook her head to indicate they wished to be left alone. Ash and his friends shuffled to the elevator, where the elevator stopped a few times to let the others exit before he found himself alone with Pakura. They walked to their rooms together, since they stayed on the same floor. Well, see you tomorrow, Paku. Ash greeted tonelessly as he reached his door. I'm coming in with you, Pakura told him. But Ash wanted to be alone, but Pakura was firm. Ash, you're not the only one who had lost a brother. Pakura was shaking her head. Or, do you not remember the classmate we lost was my twin brother? Ash nodded as he let Pakura into his room. As a special star, his room consisted of a bedroom, a dressing area, and private bathroom with hot and cold running water. It was mainly decorated with posters of his classmates in their hunter costumes, along with a large photo of them at the beach over his king-size bed. At the shelf, there are numerous trophies he won over the years, at least the ones he managed to salvage from the previous school. There was also an ornately carved desk with a comfy roller chair with great lighting, TV and computer set up with fast internet connection. There was a kitchen as well, though he rarely used it, except if he was lazy to go down to the common room. It may as well be an apartment with its size. Thanks to Philip and Stratos, there were also many automatic gadgets in his room. The shower alone has a panel with more than 100 options. He can choose regulating water temperature, pressure, soaps, shampoos, scents, oils, and massaging sponges. When a person steps out on a mat, heaters come on that blow dry his body. Instead of struggling with knots and wet hair, one can just place his hand on a box that sends a current through his scalp, untangling, parting, and dry his hair almost instantly. The windows also zoom in and out on parts of the city at his command. What do you intend to do? Pakura asked, Are you going to take time off for the funeral? Ash nodded. It'll probably be in a week or 2. They need time to clean up the body, make arrangements, and, well, I need to talk to Mum about it. You don't have to go to school if you're not up for it. Pakura told him, I have to. I am the student council president. Ash sighed. He must have looked like he was going to throw up, because Pakura sighed. Sometimes presidents need rest. After all, they're still human. I can't believe it. I just found him, and he's gone. Forever. Ash lamented. I know. Losing a sibling can be hard. But what we have left is their memories. We owe it to them to keep fighting. Pakura looked down. Like how Izuku is. Ash nodded in understanding. Both of us had great adventures with our siblings. They were wonderful, even if we were homeless for half our lives. Pakura gulped. Ashta and I used to help Mom bake cookies, and we'd build a fort to watch movies. Ash reminisced. It sounded amazing. I bet Ashta liked it too. Pakura stated honestly. He did. We were best friends before he left. Ash agreed, sniffling. I think he was carrying his memory of you when he was executing his tasks. Pakura's shoulders slumped. Ash hugged Pakura tightly, sobbing, It's all right. Just let it out. Pakura assured, just as Willow entered the room through a pet door, meowing sadly as she joined the hug as well. On the strength of this, Ash dialed his mother to tell her what happened, and they wept together before trying to discuss what they should do next. Pakura was next to him with a hand on his shoulder. The other arm was carrying Willow. Unknown to both of them, the shadows shifted, and a flicker of green could be seen from the shadows. Izuku sighed as he stood outside the dorm that was assigned to 1A, wiping his eyes sleepily as it was 5 a.m. in the morning. Carapin was hidden in his bag, having snuck him from the apartment. Apparently, they had started building it before they came to school, but needed a day to decide on the size of their rooms. He stood with the rest of the class, luggage in hand, as Mina admired. "Wow, it's huge! We're lucky kids." Sato agreed. Izuku wondered how those two could be energetic, but considering Mina's personality and Sato's quirk, he wasn't too surprised. "Now then, I'll give you a quick briefing in regards to the dorms." Aizawa gestured them to enter. "It's one class per building. The right wing is for the girls, and boys' wing are on the left. First floor is a common space, where you can find laundry, dining area, and bathroom." Mina's eyes were shining as she saw how spacious it was, and Urarka fainted as she described it to be a mansion. Rooms are from floors 2 and above. All will have air-conditioned, desk, closets, balcony, and bed. Your room size and extra facilities also depend on your current star rank. Allocations are seen here. He pointed to a map. Izuku realized he was on the 5th floor, with Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, Ida, and Tokoyami. Use the morning to unpack and arrange your rooms. You will be expected to attend classes in the afternoon. Aizawa concluded, as some groaned. "Any questions?" "Wait, where's my room?" Mineta screamed, seeing his name nowhere in the map. "Oh, yes, about that. Mineta, I'll show you to your room. Rest of you dismissed." "Yes, sensei." Izuku and the other students filed into the dorm lobby and onto the elevators. The elevator stopped at every floor to deposit the other students and their luggage before he found himself alone, and the doors opened on the 5th floor. He grimaced as he stepped into his room and let Carapin out. It was significantly larger than his room in the apartment, and he wondered what to do with the extra space that he was dividing for his bedroom. He saw that in addition to the things Aizawa mentioned, there was a computer and a toilet, along with a flat-screen TV. Izuku rushed to decorate straight away, and sounds of jackhammering and sawing were heard until Izuku examined his work, having poured all he had into his room deco. He had placed plain navy blue bedsheets and comforter that would keep him warm. On the floor there was a royal cat bed for Carapin, along with some cat toys. At the desk, there was a computer set up that had other technologies to upgrade it for gaming. Next to the desk was a shelf full of video games and books. At the walls hung instruments and his other works, such as his guitars and paintings that he had done. The door at the balcony had been replaced with French doors, and the curtain had the pattern of a galaxy over it. For some reason, he also hung posters of Ash and his friends in their hunter costumes. The corner had a cupboard, and also the fridge where he kept his ingredients, and a microwave to make something, and he was lazy to go down. There was also a coffee maker and a hot water dispenser. A basket of tea and coffee packets, along with hot chocolate, was available. A wall had been erected at a certain point in the room, and another door led to a studio that he could make dresses or other DIY stuff in peace. He could even make costumes and support items if he had the equipment. He installed soundproofing, so no one could hear what he was up to. Inside was decorated with sketches that he had made out of boredom. Overall, it was kind of a jack-of-all-trades room. He supposed it was good enough. Izuku noted he should reprogram the lock, so it would only open for him. He poured some food for Carapin on a bowl, and she pounced on it instantly. When he heard Mineta screaming, he left his room to see what was going on, only to see Mineta screaming about his room, being in an attic at the rooftop. Izuku wondered if the attic was supposed to store equipment, since it's dusty and a little dark. At the corner, there were some open, dusty boxes that contained things such as old clothes and what looked like a lobster costume. He wondered if that was some discarded costumes from the drama club or something. He entered just in time to hear Aizawa reply tiredly, "It's the only single room we have for someone below a single star." To be fair, no one ever achieved a no-star rank. Izuku thought, looking around. What is Mineta complaining about? I can see a lot of ways to revamp this attic room. Hopefully Mineta had some hidden smarts about him to do so, though. Mineta whined. This is so not fair. Izuku walked out quietly as he felt his phone vibrate. It was a text from Jude. Ultimate Actor, 6:43 a.m. Ash won't be joining us for lunch today, so don't be alarmed if you don't see him. For some reason, a little worry stabbed his heart. He went to the rooftop edge and jumped off, landing on a 3-point as a crater appeared below him. Him landing alerted the ones who were in the common room, relaxing after they were done with furnishing their rooms. Is that Midoriya-chan? Tsuyu wondered, seeing him run somewhere in his casual clothing. Where is he going in such a hurry? Oh, let's follow him. Ashido suggested cheerfully. I'm bored anyway. Great idea. It's like an adventure. Kaminari pumped up a fist, with Kirishima adding in his enthusiasm. Poking our noses into our classmate affairs is inappropriate. Ida chopped the air. Come on, Ida. You can't say you're not as curious as we are. Uraraka's eyes were shining. They went to the same direction Izuku went, wondering what he was up to. Izuku crossed to the hunter territory, earning looks from those from the hunter's side. However, he did not care as he barged into the 3-to-1 dorm building. The first thing he noticed was how grand the common room looked. A huge gaming station with a DDR machine was in the common room, and the common room looked like something out of a palace. Even the flooring was marble, and the furniture is clearly from showroom designers. The lights were also replaced with chandeliers. From this, Izuku could tell that 3-to-1 had made the changes themselves and supplied the furniture themselves. After all, more than half of them came from wealthy families outside Japan. He saw Pakura looking harassed as she served a large breakfast to the table, who can sit all 20 of the class. Most of them were gorging in greed. In fact, the only ones who weren't eating greedily were Jude, Philip, and Aquino. Where's Ash? He asked immediately, alerting them to his presence. Oh, hey, Izuku. I'm going to bring breakfast to Ash. Do you want to come? She handed him a heavily laden breakfast tray. Izuku nodded as he brought the tray up to the 5th floor, and Pakura led him to Ash's room. When they reached, he heard someone crying from the room. Pakura knocked on the door, and Ash said, Who is it? In a distraught voice. It's me, Ash. I brought breakfast. Pakura stated. The door automatically opened, and Izuku walked in to see Ash look drawn, even ill, and there was something forced in his smile. Certainly his appearance was less pristine than usual without his uniform, but his eyes were all red and squinty, and his hair looked like it hadn't been brushed, let alone washed. He was clutching to a piece of paper, and his hands were trembling. Ash? What's wrong? Izuku was slightly alarmed at his expression, putting the tray at the bedside table and running over to him. Tears were streaming from Ash's eyes, choking out sobs. He was shaking his head, not answering Izuku. Upon closer inspection, he was also gripping onto a necklace with a silver cross attached to it on his right hand, with the words home engraved vertically downwards. Sitting next to him, Izuku took a peek at the paper Ash was holding on, the tears smudging some of the words. Dear Ash, hey there, little bro, sorry you haven't heard from me in, gosh, maybe 10 years? I lost count after that mind-controlled zombie incident at your old school. Oh, yeah, forgot you blacked out from that. I was the one who saved you and your friends' asses back then. I've always kept watch over you ever since I got stabilized and living alone, just to make sure you're always safe. Thankfully, your friends can do that when I can't. If I'm not punched by now, I'll assume you're reading this after I'm dead. Anyways, 3rd year in high school, huh? Nice. I wanted to give this to you once you were ready, and I think you're ready for it. This is my necklace. More accurately, it's Dad's necklace, and he passed it on to me. Now, I'm passing it on to you. It supposedly brings good luck, even though we're both not really believers of all those hokey suspicions. Hopefully I'll be giving this to you on the first day you go back to school, preferably before you go back, but it might be a bit late since, mailmen and shit. I know we never had the best relationship ever since I left. But if you ask Mom, she'll tell you I always worried about your well-being. That's why I'm giving you this. And to make up for being absent, if I am dead, then you're free to donate pretty much anything of mine to charity, except this necklace. Even if you don't want or even need this, I don't want to get rid of it. It protected me when you and Mom were gone. I wanted to protect you and Mom now too. And know that even if I die, I'll always be with you, dead spirit or something else. Oh, and if I am dead by the time you're reading this, please tell that Akino girl not to channel my spirit. I want to be able to rest in proper peace if I die. Much love, Big Bro Ashta. P.S. If I'm dead, tell Mom that I love her and that I finally get to rest. Oh, and stare at the dark for long enough, and I'll start to stare back. Have fun sleeping tonight. Love you. Willow was meowing sadly as she gambled on the bed. His brother must have died. Izuku figured it out, gulping as he did not know what to do about Ash, who was having a breakdown. By the fact that Ash could not pull himself together, Izuku could tell his brother likely died in front of him. Thus, he also deduced there was no way he could be left alone. After a big blow like that, he looked at Pakura, who was coaxing Ash to eat. He gave her a look, silently asking her what she would do. After all, they had school in a few hours, and Ash was unlikely to be able to attend class. Pakura seemed to agree, and from the look in her eyes, she was at a loss as well. Izuku sighed and suggested, "It's not an ideal situation, but why not one of you stay with him?" "Well, I suppose, but that person would have to skip classes too," Pakura replied. "I guess there's always others to help take notes, or whatever. But what about our student council duties?" I know it's boring to hear me say this, but I think it can wait. It's going to be there when Ash returns. Izuku shrugged, not as if the others can't cover. Meanwhile, at the teacher's lounge, an older woman who had dark blue hair with 2 pigtails answered her ringing phone. The woman wore a brown shirt with a yellow sash around her belly, and also had a striped dark red skirt with rippled ends. She also had what looked like dragon teeth just below her ears and her wrists, which were connected by green and orange decorations. Cadman Drasna. Quirk, Dragon Fong. Description: allows Drasna to fire projectiles in the shape of dragon's teeth with a flick of her wrist or from her shoulders. She can also control the length and size of the projectile, with bigger ones taking time to charge. Because of the lethality of the projectile and the ability to utilize it as an improvised weapon, also makes her dangerous even in close-range combat. "Good morning, Amuri," Drasna greeted serenely, and then she cleared her throat. "What can I do for you?" At Pakura's answer from the other side, Drasna opened her eyes. "Oh, I see." "Oh, dear," Drasna gasped. "Is Ketchum feeling all right?" "This doesn't sound good." Drasna grimaced. "So it is to my understanding that he wouldn't be showing up to class. Am I right?" You're right. He should be left alone." Drasna spoke, facial expression serious. "It really is unfortunate. It was only the first day of school. Is there anything I can do?" "Let me get this straight," Drasna said. "Are you asking for absence in classes so that one of you could spend time with Ketchum?" "Well, I suppose I can get permission. Especially since you guys generally do well in all your classes." Drasna agreed. "All right, just inform me which one of you would be absent, and I will tell the rest of your teachers. Goodbye." With that, Drasna hung up just as Aizawa came in with paperwork. "Ah, Shoyuda." Drasna greeted, forcing a smile. "How was your class?" "Could be worse, Drasna." Aizawa grumbled. "I haven't expelled any of the problem children." "Come now, Shoyuda. It's not as if they could get into trouble while decorating their dorms." Drasna smiled, unknown to her. Summer 1A was teetering over the boundaries that separated the heroes' and hunters' dormitories. He crossed over the line. Ashido whispered, "Should we? Are you crazy? Those hunters won't hesitate to take our lives if we cross over." Kaminari widened his eyes. "Technically, there are no rules over this," Kirishima pointed out. "They aren't allowed to use their quirks as well." "Yeah, but they have weapons." Urarka gulped. Seeing some of the Hunter Corps students carrying weapons that varied from a sword to a spear to even a pair of guns. "What are you guys doing?" A bored voice asked from the side. They turned to see a gang of 5 first-year hunters giving them strange looks. The speaker was a girl with emerald green eyes, along with dark black hair and very pale skin. She had a strange hairstyle, with a partially shaved side, tufts of hair that resembled horns, and messy twin tails tied with red ribbons. Her bangs were also on her right side and partially covered her eye. Like the hero first years right now, she was wearing a casual outfit, which consisted of a simple black dress, along with black boots and a brown leather jacket. Benjiro Marnie. Quirk. Summoning Grimmsnarl. Description: allows her to summon a familiar named Grimmsnarl to aid her in battle. Move sets depend on the dust that she fuels her summon with. The second was a young girl with green eyes and platinum blonde hair, with 2 braids at each side of her face. She wore a large white hat with a blue ribbon around it. Her white dress had transparent outlines, and she had a pair of long socks and white shoes resembling ballet flats. She also carried a round bag with a white and red ball design. Adarine Lily. Quirk. Summoning Alolan Vulpix. Description: allows her to summon a familiar named Vulpix with a different form to aid her in battle. Move sets depend on the dust that she fuels her summon with. The third was a muscular, dark-skinned boy. He had red and brown hair, in a style resembling fire. He wore red shorts with a black outline and sandals with the same color scheme. He wore a dark red shirt, with some black claw strips on his shoulders bound to his necklace, which had a small badge and feather decorations. Neketsu Kiawe. Quirk. Summoning Turtonator. Description: allows him to summon a familiar named Turtonator with aid in battle. Move sets depend on the dust that he fuels his summon with. The fourth was a short and slender girl with fair skin, blue eyes, and short blue hair, the latter in which she wears a yellow string headband that resembled a fishing net. She was currently wearing a white tank top with a dark blue one underneath, and a short cape behind her back, with a bluefish decal in the middle of the chest. Her long pants were blue with a yellow string near the waist, and had a gold badge dangling on it. Shimizu Lana. Quirk. Water magnetism. Description: allows the user to control water when coming into physical contact with it. She can charge the molecules to either pull water towards herself or repel away to propel herself at high speeds or stick it to people and objects. The fifth was a short, chubby boy with orange hair and dark brown eyes. He wore a yellow scarf around his neck that resembled a Pikachu's tail, and a white t-shirt with an orange design of a Game Boy Color painted on it. He also had brown pants with a yellow outline and green shoes with a lightning design and blue soles. Raijin Sophocles. Quirk. Voltage conversion. Description: allows him to absorb energy, such as kinetic energy or energy from food. With this energy, his body converts it to electricity for electric-based attacks. We are looking for our classmate, who has stepped over to your area. Ida promptly replied, chopping his hands in the air. And why would he want to come to our area? Kiawe folded his arms, staring Ida down. We don't know. Ashido chirped. Everyone else groaned at her tone. Lily tried to placate the situation. Look, it's the first day, and we don't want any trouble. Just go back to your dorms. I'm sure your classmate will return soon. How will we know you don't have him hostage? Urarka cried, having heard stories of the things Hunter Corps students were willing to do. Why would we have him hostage? Sophocles cried in frustration. It was only the first day of school, and yet they were accused of kidnap already. Besides, they had no idea just who they were looking for. Ransom? Kirishima suggested feebly. Everyone face faulted at that answer. Your perspective of our course is getting old. Marnie narrowed her eyes. Just because we chose to be in the Hunter course. If you really think we would do that, why don't we show you how? Kiawe cracked his knuckles. Threatening us isn't necessary. Ida shot back. All right, what is going on here? A new voice interrupted them. They all turned to see Lance standing there, wearing his student council uniform. Oh, hey, Dragon Senpai. Kiawe greeted, as everyone else followed suit. The hero students gulped, as it was clear Lance was from the Hunter's side. Were they in trouble already? First day of patrol, and I already have to stop a fight. Now, care to tell me what's going on? Lance narrowed his eyes. We're looking for our classmate. He went over to your side of the dorms. Ida promptly answered, meeting Lance's eyes in fearful determination. Oh, that? Lance nodded knowingly. It's good to see you're concerned for a classmate you just knew, but I can assure you he's fine. He's in the 3-to-1 dorms at the moment. 3-to-1? That's the third year's dorm. Urarka's eyes were as wide as saucers. Why would Midoriya wander into the biggest lion's den? Apparently, our student council president has a family emergency, and the boy went to check on him. Lance recounted. Lance turned to Marnie and the others. There's no problem looking for a classmate, right? The first-year Hunter Course students shook their heads. Then I think you better get going. Lance told them, pointing to a direction. Let's go. Marnie told her classmates, and they all turned to head back to the dormitories. I didn't know he knows the president. Ashido titled her head when the group left. It's something new to us, too, Lance shrugged. Then again, it's 3-to-1. We don't really know a lot about what they do within their class. The first years exchanged apprehensive glances at what Lance was implying. He then smiled reassuringly. Why don't I take you to their dorm? You might see it for yourself. You're with me, so I don't think the others will mind much. Thanks. Kirishima grinned. You're welcome. Lance nodded, beckoning them over the border. Come on. This is against the rules. Ida protested. Rules only said that you cannot be in the others' dorms outside of curfew. Never said anything about before. Lance replied. You're seriously condoning breaking the rules? Ida was incredulous, since Lance was a student council member. However, since the others were already crossing the border, he could nothing but stumble after them. Theoretically, would you let an innocent person die just because you're told to do so by a pro hero? Lance retorted as he led the way. Even if you knew you could save that person, and are questioning the pro hero's ability to get to that innocent person, would you really just suck it up and stay by the sidelines? Well, Ida hesitated. Isn't that a pro hero's job? Doesn't mean they can do it perfectly. Some don't even do it to save people. They are here for the glory. Lance shrugged. Like death arms. He couldn't take a single criticism. How did you know that? Urarka blinked. Lance grimaced. It's stated in one of his interviews. Aren't they supposed to be the hero worshippers? At least the pro hunters could take criticism from the public much better, since we all get criticized anyway. He thought bitterly. Before Lance could say any more, he heard a familiar male singing and a guitar strumming. The only male he knew who could sing to that level and was in 3-to-1 was Shiki? Lance thought, as he went to the source of singing, followed by Izuku's classmates. That guy has amazing singing. Ashido clapped as she heard the melodious voice. Maybe he can sing while I dance next time. It'll be a stellar performance. Ashido-kun, he's in 3-to-1. We should not be disturbing hunters for something this trivial. Ida warned, chopping his hands. Lance opened the door to 3-1's dorm and said, Hey, Shiki, what's with the early morning sunset? He trailed off when he realized who was singing. The ones from 1A also gaped when they saw the singer, who was apparently trying to cheer the person sitting on the couch up. Izuku stopped singing the moment he sensed them coming in. He rolled his eyes when he found out just who it was. I hate my new class so much. Izuku thought, his mic still in hand.